Hello,
Hello.
hello, hello. How is everyone doing today? We are joined today by Ben. Where have you been, Dr. Ben? Where have you been? Oh
Working.
my gosh. Working.
Working.
I
Yeah.
understand that. I understand that.
But not
Um,
today. Not today. I'm
Not
not well,
today.
that's a lie. I did work a little bit today because I got behind, but um I think it's funny that
Understandable.
the colors I have the pink one and Josie has the blue one.
Yes, that
I know
seems like
it's just
I
the
am a
coincidence of
cheerleader
what side of the
vibes.
screen we're on, but
But I'm a cheerleader vibes. That's how I look at it. Like what would we wear if we were in that camp? That's where we are. Well, welcome everybody to the Transatlantic Call-In Show, where you get to talk to real live trans people, and our lines are open. So make sure you call 720-619-2288 or go to the web link in the description below. And always remember, we have a Patreon as well. And if you want your super chats to be read at the end of the show, make sure you donate $5 or more. And Dr. Ben and I will be able to share those chats and make a fool of ourselves as we do. As you ask the really sharp and pointed questions at the end of the show. And I always love your comments. It's always the joy of my week.
but if you have a super sharp and pointed question, you should just call the show because we're here to
Facts.
address those. And we only have so much time at the end of the show to really get deep into the questions. So if you have a question that's burning and you really want some discussion, now's the time. Call in. The lines always fill. And if someone, hangs up, try to take their spot, get on, and then maybe we'll get to your question as well. So that's the best way to ask a question. But we also do appreciate the
Absolutely.
super chats. But call in with your deep questions.
And Michael, if you are listening, I know we got spicy last time and you called 3 shows in a row, but I was thinking a lot and I was like, I would really like to see Michael show up again so we can finish the final piece of this conversation to really talk about the distinctions between sex and gender. And you have a real doctor on the line. So therefore, we can actually talk about the science in a way that is even more critical than the way I could even speak on things sometimes. So, Michael, if you're listening, please know I don't hate you. Please know that I'm not too spicy and I won't start spicy. I love you dearly. And I think we need to have a closure to that conversation because it was a lot of fun. And also, I got spicy at the end of that call too. So you got to think we were on the phone with you for about 35 minutes. So it was a long call. So now we can start again from zero. It'd be great. Let's go. Sorry, Dr. Ben, if
She
you weren't
really
paying
wants to
attention, there
go.
was. Hey, yeah. If he really wants to go, and we'll even give you calling and privilege. Okay, like if you show up and call, we'll be good. Dr. Ben, you don't understand. There was a long history with this caller over the last 3 calls with Lux Alexander and I, and it was a trip. It was a trip. We went around the bend to get to the final point, and I think you being here will help us top that off even better. So, long story short, there was a
Let's
drama. The
do it.
first time Josie ever got spicy on a call. So with
It's not
that,
the
let's
last
go ahead
time.
and get.
It's not the last time.
It won't be the last time. No, no, definitely won't be. All right, so let's get to the poll. All right. So, do you think the Supreme Court will uphold the 14th Amendment in Tennessee trans youth care case? And we have a lot of bleakness. We have no at 89% with a trailing 11% yes. What are your thoughts on this?
You know, as much as I hate it, I don't have a lot of hope in our current situation and the people who, should be making decisions on behalf of the greater good of the entire nation. But unfortunately, that is not it's not been the trend lately, and so I probably would have also responded with a no. Not that I want that to be a no, but I just, we're in a weird situation right now in this country, and a lot of things that, we've said this won't happen, like we got too many safeguards in place, like they're not gonna go this extreme, but I keep getting proven wrong every single time. um, and so it's nothing is too out there for people to start pursuing, and we need to, I guess, as a community, as a country, take things seriously. Like we can't rely on what we would do and what we think is the norm or what we think should happen, because those safeguards are not proving to be very good safeguards. And so we need to be more proactive, and not just assume that the law is going to remain the way that we've perceived it to be.
Agreed, and I will also say that it's even more frustrating as, and I am one of those political people. I know all the things that are going on, insider and out, and when the Biden administration put out two separate statements saying that they don't believe that minors should be able to get trans related surgeries, we were so disappointed. And the thing that really I was thinking about directly was about this case. Now the Supreme Court justices are going to be able to have even more cover by using the words of the administration to say, oh, see, even the administration believes that we shouldn't be having any type of care for minors. Although, like it was specific to surgeries, I still think that the way the Supreme Court operates, they will use that in the broadest sense of the word. So it's not great, and it's really depressing on 4th of July, as we are celebrating freedom. We are discussing removing freedoms from a large segment of our population. So, yeah. So, what about this week's poll? This week's poll?
Kind of jumped the gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
As the voice of God speaks. So can POTUS simultaneously claim to be LGBTQ ally and oppose evidence-based gender-affirming surgeries for minors? Yes, I did jump the gun. And yeah, because it was on my mind. Ben,
Yeah,
what are
it
your
was
thoughts?
on mine too, which is why I suggested this poll for this week. But yeah, it's especially fun that we go through Pride Month and everybody on the surface says that they're an ally and they say that they stand for trans rights and all that. And then July 1st comes along and that is no longer the case. They're only an ally for 1 month out of the year, which is not really helpful for any of us. And so I would say no. Like, if you are opposing evidence-based medical care for trans people, you are not an ally, and anything that you say, even in support of queer people, does not counteract the negative things that you actively do, especially if you're comparing words versus actions. Your words are meaningless when your actions say otherwise. And I'm sure we're going to have a lot of talks today about this particular topic. So I won't go too in depth. So we have a few callers on the line waiting to talk about this issue, but we go through this every single week almost. The concerns people have about surgeries for minors are not grounded in truth or fact. It is propaganda using equivocation fallacies to suggest that things are happening that are not happening. And in doing that, it is harming people who these surgeries are meant for, and it's hurting people who would be getting evidence-based, safe procedures in an aim to reduce harm from the alternative of not having those procedures. And it really shows the lack of understanding of the people who claim to be allies, that they haven't even learned the most basic knowledge needed to make these decisions. Like you don't need to have a medical degree. You don't need to go to the depths of the research in PubMed or wherever to get access to the information to say these procedures that are approved for minors are like relatively safe and are used appropriately for people who have medical indications to have them. And so opposing that just in itself is saying these people don't have any knowledge of what they're talking about, and they're just saying things. So
Yeah.
I won't go more on that soapbox. But
Yeah.
Josie, I'm sure you got a soapbox about this topic as well.
I do, and it's really interesting because I got a call from Biden HQ because I get calls from them now and the DNC, and they're like, Josie, what are your thoughts? What are you going to do? What's going to happen? Right? Because I have a lot of sway in like different organizational movement work and things like that. It's really always surreal when I get those calls in a kind of in the heat of the panic, and I was like, well, this is really bad. And the person agreed, right? Because they're working specifically with the queer communities and trying to build up alliances for the Biden campaign in particular. And they know that this doesn't look good, right? And it's really frustrating, right? Because the first thing I asked is like, who said this? Right. I was like, name some names. Like, who on the administration doesn't know what the hell they're saying or talking to the press in this way as a White House official? Because I think about Admiral Levine is there, right? Admiral Levine
Mhm.
is the assistant undersecretary for the Health and Human Services, and she's already claimed in her own words, speaking for the administration, that there shouldn't be a limit, and this should be a conversation between the doctor and the family. So the thing that really drove me a little bonkers about this is the fact that they basically contradicted one of their top officials on and experts on this
Yeah.
topic, and the contradiction of that person made me incredibly disconcerted. So our
Yeah.
organizations and organization bodies all said, hey, this isn't okay. Like, we had to denounce and say this was wrong and it's not okay. And what's also incredibly frustrating is that it's using up the goodwill that we need to defeat the greater enemy,
Yeah.
which is Trump. In our and the fact is that we have to ask this question, like, LGBTQ ally, and now we have to play the game of, let's piece together all the things. Title IX's good, right? Rule 1557 is good, which allows more healthcare. We have a proclamation. We have all of these things. And then you're like, oh, and by the way, here's this really bad thing, right? And here's another really bad thing, right? Where the surgeries are where the administration seems to be drawing a random line, like with the Veterans Administration not allowing surgeries, and now them putting out a statement saying that trans minors shouldn't get surgeries. Like, it's like, what is going on? And the definition of what we need to do needs to change, and we're kind of stuck in a rock and a hard place because we have this situation, and then we have the other alternative, which will set us back 40 to 50 years, criminalizing our healthcare altogether, on the other side of it. So it's incredibly frustrating because they're using up our goodwill, and to do this when I think the administration needs us the most to keep fighting this case is really, really frustrating. So those are my
Mhm.
thoughts. Will I still be voting against Trump and voting for Biden? Absolutely. But it sucks that we still have to fight this fight and have to look at things in such a stark reality. It's incredibly frustrating
Yep.
for me. And I've let my opinions be heard. So they know. They know I'm pissed. And it's not okay.
Yeah, and they should. They should know it's not okay. Like
Yeah.
you have to understand, like they have to understand their voter base too. Like they are. I will see how this turns out, but I mean, we already have not great like voter turnout. But let's see what this does for it. This could really, really hurt us.
I actually have
So,
a good authority, actually. And I actually know that in the 2020 election cycle, because I do the US Trans survey work, that over 80% of our community voted in the 2020 election. And that's a big margin of people. And we need that to increase because we are actually, as the trans
mm,
community, one of the highest voting demographics in the country. And to say this to your highest voting demographic in your country is incredibly disconcerting when this election's going to be this close. They need to get their heads
Yeah.
out of their ass. Like, it pisses me
Right.
off.
Right. Like that's just bad. That's just, bad practice, like in an election in
Yeah.
general. It's like alienating your voter
Yeah.
base. Regardless of what your
Yeah,
opinions are.
absolutely.
Like that. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, with that, let's jump onto the calls, and Matthew actually called in. So we are going to start with Matthew, and we will go from there. Hi, Matthew. How are you?
Hey, Dr. Ben. Hey, Josie. Just a slight correction. You called me Michael in the beginning when you were calling me
Oh, I
out.
apologize. I meant
Call back
Matthew.
in.
I'm so sorry.
That's totally
I'm
fine.
sorry.
That's totally fine.
Yes.
I
Yes.
just wanted to start off, and I think Dr. Ben and I had a conversation the first time I called in with Alexander was there and Dr. Ben, and we kind of wrapped up the whole gender, sex difference thing. So going back to that was very interesting when I called with you last week, Josie. But the thing is, I wasn't trying to be of bad faith or anything like that. I made it very clear that I am traditionalist. I'm skeptical of transgender ideology. Even if you want to call me a transphobe, I'll take that on the chin, And the thing is, before even as I have these conversations, for example, like the singular they thing, I used to challenge that a bit, but I was convinced of that, and I was like, yeah, okay, I get that. I even get mad at people for like trying to use the singular they. Like, well, who's they? How much are they? I'm like, you guys know what they're saying. Like, makes perfect sense. Singular they. It makes perfect sense. So I've changed my mind on things like that. And like if somebody's like, oh, my gender pronouns are assault and helicopter, I'm like, you're not doing any help here. You're not really helping. You know what I mean? You're not having that good faith conversation. So I know what a non-good faith conversation sounds like. So yes, last week when I'm told I'm not having a good faith conversation on the call-in show where I'm supposed to have these conversations, I'm just like, it's already established that I don't believe the ideology. I wasn't trying to hide anything, if that makes sense.
Sure. So let me go ahead and start. First, the thing that I want to just start at is, regardless of the use of bad faith, and I didn't call you a transphobe, by the way. I never did that. And so the idea was essentially because we started with this idea of protecting children, right? And then it went all the way back over the course of 3 episodes to go back to the distinction between gender and sex was the thing that I felt was bad faith, because there's still a crux to the argument that needs to be addressed, which is the difference between gender and sex. So when you say there's no difference between gender and sex, we have to go all the way back to logical foundations of where we are talking about trans people in the first place, and them saying who they are. So that's what I meant by bad faith, and I apologize for not being clear when I was talking about that, because the initial conversation you wanted to talk about was protecting trans children, but then we had to go all the way back to the distinction between sex and gender. So in this conversation, my hope is that we have a really clear conversation about the understanding between sex and gender. And I will go ahead and start with the point that I made before, which was a black person, a blonde-headed person, a trans. Sorry, I'm not going to say person. I'm going to say women. So a black woman, a blonde-headed woman, a trans woman, and a cis woman are all in the category of gender of woman. And that is what I was trying to say. And you do not agree with that statement. And
Right.
when I asked you, you don't agree with that statement, I said, do you believe there's a difference between sex and gender? So have you thought about that? And what are your thoughts on that? Because I think that's where this conversation can begin. And I think we can get get to a fruitful point.
Well, I would love to get to a fruitful point, but like I said, and I don't mind having the conversation again. I had it with Dr. Ben, and the 3 of us, Alexander, I, and Dr. Ben, came to this conclusion that they are different, but they're inseparable. Not only that, at the end of the conversation, it was like, we need to stop saying that they're separate. They're not the same thing, because it seems like they're definitely not the same thing definition-wise and all this stuff. And even there's like,
I did not agree that they are inseparable. I agree that oftentimes there's connection, and that they
Mhm.
can influence each other. But that does not mean that they're the same, and it does not mean that they are always in alignment or that they're connected. But your experience through each one of them influences the other. And in that, people like it's the same thing with people from different cultural backgrounds. Like you can't undo the way you were raised. You can't undo the situation you were born into. That's going to forever influence your life. But that doesn't mean that you forever identify with that culture or still practice that culture, etc. It doesn't mean you live in the same country that you did, but that will always be part of your background and your story. And that's kind of the same thing with sex and gender. Like your identity even can change over time with how you learn about yourself. Um, but you cannot change how you were born. You can't change the development that you like naturally had. You can't change those things. And if you're socialized in a certain gender role, you cannot undo that. You can move forward and learn and grow, but you can't separate yourself entirely from those things that have already happened. And so I think that's where our disconnect is. It's not that these are the same thing or that they like are inseparable. It's your experience, your cumulative experiences are essentially inseparable from what is like what has already happened has happened is what I mean by all of that.
Yeah, that's fair, and that's kind of what I'm meaning. Like, they're not. What I mean when I say like essentially or practically, I don't mean like completely, utterly inseparable, but they're just so interlocked with one another. Was the idea that I came to? But I think having the conversation where I think it should be is where, okay, we already established this, and to be clear, I don't necessarily find transphobic an insult. So I wasn't saying it like, oh well, you insulted me in that way, Josie. I wasn't saying it like that. But what I'm saying is, what I got left off and where I want to be is where we talked about the brain. The brain is an organ of sex, I think was the idea that I was given. Is that correct?
Well, it's not true. That's not a true statement. We used to believe
Okay.
that brains were sexed, but we do not accept that anymore because we have data that suggests that there really is no brain difference between sex at all. Like that isn't founded. So I don't accept that point.
I see. I've seen research that says otherwise. So, but like you said, we were raised to think that way. And that's kind of my point anyway. It's like,
Matthew, if you're going to pull that, no, I'm not going to let you drop that and then just move on. What source?
No, we're talking about it, so I'm just making a point.
No, you're using it as a point, and I'm not going to let you throw it in there and then just not have to cite your source. Tell me your source.
Please carry on.
Tell me what year it was published in, because that might not be the most up-to-date source.
Mm-hmm. So no, I'm agreeing with you that it may not be the up-to-date source, but as you said, that's what I was trying to say.
So then why would we use that? So then hold on, Matthew, but if that's not the most up-to-date source, then why would we use that in our argument? Why would we not just stick with the most up-to-date data? And the consensus now is that there isn't.
The first time. Go ahead.
So, but if you're going to adhere to a belief and you're going to disagree with the consensus, you need to give a reason why you disagree with that. And if you say that you have evidence, or if you've read things, I want to know where you read them, when they were published, etc., so that we can have the conversation. Is that perspective like meaningful to talk about? Is that something that we should adhere to? Are you correct or are you not? Like that's like right. I'm not a fan of just throwing out things as if like suggesting that you have data or suggesting that you have an argument and then not providing the necessary like evidence to back that up.
Yeah, so just if you would just have a little patience with me, I am a bit slow. So where I'm coming from is, as you said, this is how we are grown up to know. We were taught this. Like when you just said that that's not what the data is showing now. I've never seen data that says that, so this is new to me. This is the information that you said to me. I'm not agreeing with it because I haven't seen any data for it. But it's not that I'm saying that there is no data for it. I just haven't seen the data for it. So as we are on the same page, as in, hey, this has been the long-standing theory for a very long time, and then you tell me it changed, I'm like, okay, so I want to get into, I don't know, I want to get into a conversation about those dynamics.
So then here's a question.
I don't want to drop the subject. Pardon?
Yeah, but then here's a question for you. Like, if you're not up to date on these things, why are you, like, number one, are you in a place of expertise to be making the calls on these things? Should you be like, for example, I have to stay very up to date on the things that I talk about because it's necessary for my job. Josie has to be very up to date on the things for her job. We would expect that people who make statements, especially publicly, about these things are up to date on what they're talking about. I would probably defer to somebody who has up to date knowledge on these things and not sit back and trust myself on something that I'm not up to date in, or like an area that I'm not an expert in. Like, yeah, you can have opinions.
Right. So that's why.
But if you're going to choose one perspective over another, or like one set of data over another, why would you then defer to your own expertise? Like, or why do you think that your own perspective on this is equally or more valid than a consensus of experts? Like, and that's my honest question for you.
Yeah. So you have the information, right? That you have the expert information, right? So I'm coming to you as the expert to get that information, right? I haven't seen data
but each time we give you that information, you go back and say, I still don't agree with that. So there's something in your argument that you are still going back to your own thoughts and saying, I still know more than these people. So why are you so confident in your knowledge when it continually disagrees with expert consensus? Why is there an inconsistency there? Because if you're going to say that you just want to learn and you want to adopt like up-to-date perspectives, but you're not changing your mind on those things, and you've made some steps, and I don't think it's an intentional flaw. I don't think that you're necessarily intentionally trying to do that, but it's an implicit bias. It's something that you're like, we all want to stick with what we know. Like, it's something that we're very prone to do as humans, and it's hard to acknowledge biases. But I think that might be what we're dealing with here, and I'm trying to help you overcome that piece.
Perhaps, and that's very fair, and that's kind of why I'm here talking to you, right? Because you have the expert knowledge on this, which I'm guessing you do. I'm not denying that, but now I'm saying, okay, you brought up this information that I wasn't privy to, and I'm listening. That's why I'm saying I'm not dropping it. I'm just having the conversation, if that makes sense. So I'm like, okay, you're saying this because I never said I disagree with the idea that the brain is gendered or anything like that. That's what I was understanding, right? So you said the brain is not gendered. In the last conversation I had, I was told the brain was gendered, and I agreed with that. I said, yeah, that's what I'm known to be true, to be the case. And then I had a question, and then you said that's not the case. So now I'm all ears to listening.
So I wanna jump in really quick, Matthew. So I think there are two different conversations happening, because there is what Dr. Ben said, which is the brain is not sexed, and that means like the size of the brain, like the physical nature of the brain, all of those things. That's like, remember how we were talking about the difference between sex and gender, right?
Sorry, yeah.
This is why there's a difference. So there's a big difference, right, between the two, right? The idea of a brain being sexed means right, but like, but the thing is, well, it doesn't matter if it's big or not. Like, just because a cis person has a gender connected to their sex, that's a cis person. A trans person doesn't, right? So we have to say that those two things are different. Just like the way we're having this conversation is different, right? This is why these words matter. So when we're talking about a sex brain, there was research that was done that is already out of date, which essentially says that a brain that is this size is male and this brain is female. But after further analysis, they realized that there was so much overlap, it was impossible to actually judge 100% of the time of that being the case, right? We were able to throw out that research because of that. Yeah, right. So there's it's a curve. Just like you can find, cis men with wide shoulders and cis men with narrow shoulders, and cis women with narrow hips and cis women with wide hips. Like it's just got, there's so much of a range that it's impossible to just like determine who somebody is by just these characteristics alone. It's the same thing with the brain. So when we were talking last time with Lux, when Lux was here, we were talking, I think, and I don't want to put words in its mouth, is the idea that it's like gender is an internal state that comes from the mind, if in a sense, right? You could talk about it that way, because gender is something that you identify without the idea of sex in mind. Just because it correlates sometimes doesn't mean it's all the time. And I think that's where the conversation I'm trying to make is that because of those two things alone, there is a difference between sex and gender. And that's where I think I got a little annoyed, was that you weren't acknowledging the fact that there is a difference between the two. Does that make sense? Because I'm trying to explain to you that there is a difference between sex and gender.
Yeah, I've been consistent to say that they're different. I just don't think it's as big of a difference. So the point is, and I want to make this clear, because I think in conversation, a lot of people think that, well, you have to agree with me because I brought you some data that you weren't privy to. And you may be still right on the data, but I don't know that to be the case. And I'm not going to say that you're wrong on the data because I don't know that to be the case either, right? So now that
that's when you look into the data. That's when, like, what you're doing, what I understand that you're doing is you're just hearing the information, and then you're just kind of going back to what you already thought, and you're not actually, like, you're saying, like, oh, this thing wasn't data that I was aware of. Okay, cool. Go read some more. Go study some more. Like, this is not an excuse to just be like, well, I just didn't know that information, therefore I'm fine believing what I do. No, and that's
not
like,
at all. Not at all.
I think that there's a disconnect with what there's a disconnect with what we understand skepticism to be. You have a very high amount of confidence in things that we continually like understand are incorrect. Instead of a skeptic would be somebody who approaches a situation with a lower level of confidence in something that they don't understand. And they would say, I don't know enough about this topic. No, and they would just say, I don't know about this topic. Let me learn more, or like, let me think about this more. A skeptic isn't going to commit to something that they like don't have much understanding about, or if they find out that they don't know something, they're going to back off their confidence and change their opinions. But I think you're saying that you're skeptical, but you're not approaching this topic with skepticism. So I think what you really need to do is take down your confidence entirely, even like start from ground zero. Like, say, just like enter with questions and actually go read. And we can give you some resources to read like that. There is plenty out there to have this discovery, but I think you've already made your mind up about things, and then you're trying to chip away at bad ideas instead of actually investigating the issue. And I think that's the wall that we're up against. And with the brains thing, like the fact that people used to think that brains were sexed, a lot of that was arguments being used to say men are more logical than women, or like these are brain functions that are exclusively male because women can't be leaders, women can't be like they're not fit to be in government because they're too emotional. Like, those are the arguments that were included with the sexed brain idea. And we've learned that women are not incapable of logic, and in fact, men by default are not more logical than women. Like, that's nonsensical. Logic is based on individuals and their capacity for logic. So really, if you look at this skeptically, there's nothing about a brain that is inherently going to be like more like stereotypically masculine or feminine than another. This is something like, and I guess maybe we're going too deep into the difference between like
I think we're going too fast here, because I want to take a step back. I want to take a step
Go
back.
ahead, man.
I want to make it. Yeah, I'm not trying to die on this skeptic hill. Like, please call me a skeptic. Like, that's not where I'm trying to come from, or that's not where I'm going. I want to be very clear here that you made certain points that, and I'm willing to accept these points, right? I was wrong about something, and I was, or at least from your point of view, I was wrong about something, and I don't mind saying I was wrong about it. I just thought that was the research, and I'm coming from a place that I am wrong about this, right? I can do the research and be like, okay, I wasn't wrong if I wasn't, or okay, I'm wrong. I can maintain that. I don't mind maintaining that I was wrong about this in the conversation, because I feel like if I do that, we can actually move forward in the conversation, right? So
no, that's fine. But you're not
yeah.
intentionally out there learning, but you're not going out and learning more. You're going back
right
to the
now,
same ideas you previously had.
Hold on. And
right
Matthew,
now.
I just want to jump in, Matthew. I
Yeah,
want to
please.
jump in. The reason we even got here in the first place, right, was the statement that I made that some women have penises and some women don't. Some men have penises and some men don't. And we got to that position where that question, and you fundamentally disagreed with that statement. And then when I asked about the difference between sex and gender, and then brought up the example of a black woman, a redheaded woman, a trans woman, and a cis woman, all being in the same category of the gender of woman, you also fundamentally disagreed with that. And the reason that I got locked into that point of view, not that point of view, but that point of contention, was because to disagree with that statement is where a lot of the core issues of abuse and not allowing trans people to use certain spaces, laws, all of that is based on that root understanding, right? So if you so I really want to get back to that point, Matthew, and not talk about anything else. Is like, what needs to be, not what needs to be said, but do you still believe that some women can have penises and some women can't, in the
No
most
way.
basic sense? Okay, so
No way.
so that's where I want to explore. I want to explore that idea, right? Because that's where this argument is going, and I want to stay honed in on that point, because we want to have a discussion about why you disagree with that, beyond the brain and beyond everything else.
To be fair, Josie, I think that, to be fair, I think that's where you want to take it. I don't think I want to take it there, but I'm willing to have you take it there. I don't think.
Yeah, I want to explore that point because it's the crux.
That's fine. I'm just letting you know that I'm coming along begrudgingly.
Okay, that's fair, and I appreciate you saying that, right? Because at the end of the day, it's that point, right? That is the crux of the argument, right? Because right now we are in a society where people fundamentally disagree with that point so much that they are abusing and creating laws and hurting trans women just based on that opinion alone. And so that's why I blew it up to kind of being like, there's a difference between sex and gender, because once we can decouple that, then you can understand that some women have penises and some women don't, just like there are trans women and there are cis women, but they're both women, right? Because once we can start talking about what that is, that's when we can start talking about the initial question about how do you protect trans kids. So that's kind of where I want to explore that. So what is it that you do not believe that is a woman with a penis is not a woman? Like, explain to me why you believe that's so.
Because women are adult human females, and females don't have penises.
But that wasn't the same definition.
Pardon?
That you threw two concepts together. One, you said adult human females, and then you tacked on and women don't have penises. So you do realize that you're using two independent clauses.
So a woman is adult human female, and females do not have penises.
And females do not have penises, and so correct. You are abiding by a strict definition that even Webster's disagrees with.
That who disagrees with?
Webster's dictionary.
Webster's.
Most
possibly.
dictionaries.
I mean,
because you're using definitions, right? Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. So therefore, there's an evolution in understanding of what that meant. 60 years ago, 100 years ago, sure, that's what people believed, and that's how people used to get beaten in the streets and killed for, right? Because of those words. But we can understand that words evolve, like you just said. So could it be that the evolution of the way that you're thinking is actually different now in modern time than it was 100 years ago?
I don't think we all agree on that Webster definition, though, is what I'm saying. I think as a society, we have not all collectively.
But where is your definition coming from?
Change the colors.
But where is your definition? Where is your definition coming from?
From my understanding, I always understood that to be a woman. Like there's no other way to define a woman. From what I understand.
You just naturally came to a definition that comes from specific like transphobic groups and their slogans and their like you organically thought that up on their own.
What I'm assuming you're coming from was the Matt Wells documentary of
did
What
you
is a Woman, right?
Matthew,
What is a woman?
Did you come up with that? Did you come up with that definition organically on your own?
I confirmed the definition. I always knew the definition. Just
so
like
you did
said,
not come up
earlier,
with it on your own. So you heard it somewhere else. So you did not come up with that definition. You got it from somewhere.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Let me explain. So last week, Josie mentioned how sometimes young people don't know how to express certain things when they're gendering or whatever. It's in the same kind of idea in light where it's that's what it is, and then someone gives you a definition. You say, yeah, I confirm that. I agree with that. So I'm not saying that I've never
okay, so
heard
you got
that
it.
before.
You
That's
agreed.
Hold on,
yeah.
please
so
let
you
me finish because they're always cutting me off, and I don't think that's fair. And I think we should have a conversation about it. I think it's okay.
That you heard
don't worry.
But it also doesn't really. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is, like definitions are not super strict and all encompassing of every situation. And one that I know Katy Montgomerie likes to use frequently is how would you define a chair? Like, could you come up with a definition for that includes all chairs and excludes all non-chairs? Can you do something like that?
Something that you sit on, I guess. That's what I would use a chair for. Something that is sitting you can sit on.
So is a horse a chair?
No.
But you can sit on it. So that's a chair, right? According to your definition, a horse is a chair. According to your definition, my table is a chair because I can sit on it.
I can use a table as a chair.
So then your definition has is not all encompassing, right? So you
No.
You accept.
I'm not thinking
so
about,
you accept that there are exceptions. You accept that there are exceptions to that definition of chair, right?
Yeah.
Are there exceptions to your definition of woman?
No.
Why not? Why are you allowing exceptions for another definition, but not for this one?
Because that's what I've always known to be the case.
So you don't have a good reason. You're just going back to what you previously believed. Why are you willing to change your mind on other things, but not this?
Well, hold on. I think that's
holding you back.
Too I think that's a little bit too forward. For me, it's just
I don't care if it's too forward. Answer the question. I'm trying to be forward because I don't want you to be wishy-washy about your opinions. I want you to tell us why you believe what you believe, because I want you to understand how illogical it is. Like you're illogical. I'm not following you.
I've always known a chair to be something that you can sit on, right? And I've always known a woman to be an adult human female, right? Now, I can say I can use this table as a chair or whatever it may be, and I would say a chair, from what we know from history, the same way I see woman, right? A chair, as you said, you can sit on a horse. That would be a lot more ambiguous than a woman. A chair would be more ambiguous than a woman, if that makes sense.
But but the idea is like the idea, Matthew, and I'm just going to use your words, right? Because that's really what it is, right? You were saying that you understand, and that's how I've always understood it. Isn't there a, like, let's say you lived in a town where all fire hydrants were red, and you understood it to be a fire hydrant because it's a red fire hydrant, regardless of the mechanics of it. You're like, all fire hydrant, and then all of a sudden you're in a different state that has yellow fire hydrants. And so firefighters are going to that fire hydrant to put out a fire, and like, no, that's not a fire hydrant. Fire hydrants are red. You can't use a yellow one. But your understanding, the way you've understood it, was always that they were red. Does that? It doesn't factually make sense to the reality of the world that some fire hydrants aren't red, just like some women have, some don't.
And what you're saying makes sense about the fire hydrant thing and even the chair thing, right? These are really good points. And what I mean by too forward is like, let me just think about it. Let me think it through. Conversations don't work in a way where it's just like, you see this, agree with it, because then I'm disagreeing with anything, right?
So think it through. We're not going to interrupt you.
If I may.
We're not going to interrupt you.
If I may.
I'm not going to interrupt you. I want you to think it through on why that analogy is different from the way you believe women to be.
Right. So, and these are things that I would have to talk through conversation. So I mean, because I'm talking to you, right? So instead of pausing for a moment and being quiet, I can talk you through my own thoughts, and that might be helpful for me and for the whole conversation. So I want to go back to the chair, because when we define things, right, we are defining things by form and function, right? The function of a chair is to be sat on, right? So when someone tells me to define a chair, I can easily say something to sit on. And they can say, well, the horse is a chair. And I'm like, well, I guess you sit on it. That's the function, but it's a little bit different. These all have different functions, right? And maybe I can get a better definition for a chair. And this also may work with women, what I'm trying to say before I because I'm a little bit like trying to catch it too. I don't want to get cut off again. I just want to process this, right? So what you're saying can also be true about women as well, right? And I'm willing to hear that out, and willing to understand that, willing to change my mind if it works. But then I also have to go back and say, yeah, I see what you're saying, guys. But at the same time, the function of a woman, from what I understand it to be, would be doing the functions of a female, right? Giving birth, nursing children, stuff like that, as an adult human female. So it's a little bit less nuanced than the chair. Pardon?
Sorry, as I was muted. Matthew, this is important. I know I didn't want to interrupt you, but this is important. Okay.
Please.
What in your mind is the function of a woman? And is the are the functions of all women the same? Does every woman have the same function? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, that's a good question. So typically, the function of a woman is, giving birth, nursing.
So if a woman, if a woman cannot, so if a woman cannot give birth, are they still a woman?
Yes, that's why I said typically. So, for example, if a woman cannot give birth, she's considered barren,
so you
right?
acknowledge an exception. So you acknowledge an exception for that case.
Yeah.
Why don't you allow other exceptions?
She can still have the potential to give birth if some medical miracle. And I don't mean
that. Maybe she doesn't. Matthew, are you familiar with people that might not develop a uterus?
Yeah,
that happens.
It's very common.
I wouldn't consider that a woman, though. I wouldn't consider that.
You would not consider. You would not consider. Wait, okay, now
so Matthew, if somebody has XX chromosomes, if they otherwise develop completely phenotypically female, including externally phenotypically female, but internally they do not have a uterus, even if they have ovaries. Let's say this person has ovaries but no uterus. Is that not a woman?
Yeah, they have ovaries
by your definition.
Sorry.
But they can't have babies.
I was thinking the whole thing along with
but Matthew, you can't have a baby without a uterus. Even if you have ovaries, you cannot have a baby.
That's fair. Is
that person not a woman?
Without a uterus,
no. And even if somebody doesn't have ovaries, you're saying that they're not a woman.
If they don't have ovaries, I would consider them a eunuch.
But what if they have wait a minute. So hold on, Matthew. You do realize that there are women that are born with XX chromosomes that are found to not have ovaries, and they give those cis women, when they are girls during puberty, estrogen so they can develop, right? As a adult human female, right?
Right.
So would you not consider that person? Well, okay, so here we go, right?
Yeah.
These exceptions exist. So we're talking through, like you said,
Yeah,
we're talking it
definitely.
through, right? So
Mhm.
now we're getting to the point where like women are a thing that you are saying, okay, this is so we've already debunked the function, right? Which is you said they
Mhm.
need to be able to give birth to do
Typically,
that. So you've already agreed now that that's not necessarily the case all the time, but they're still women.
right?
Okay, what else?
Right. Yeah, that would be it. Very basic, just to keep
Okay,
it basic. Giving
okay,
birth,
so
nursing
so
children. Yeah.
okay, so if a person cannot do that, and we've already established that you
Hmm.
believe that a woman that doesn't have those features can still be a woman,
Hmm.
so why
Yes.
couldn't a trans woman also be a woman in that same sense? Develop breasts,
Because they don't have
develop
ovaries.
like all that. Well, what about the cis woman that doesn't have ovaries? We already agreed that that person can be a woman.
Well, you said that if they get medication and they can develop
I
those
get
ovaries,
Yeah,
then
medication.
trans
they would.
women get medication.
No,
Yeah,
the
if you
the the
give a
the, the
trans,
cis
yeah,
woman doesn't. The cis woman doesn't grow ovaries. Okay, if she was not born with ovaries, all right. So there's no
That's what you told
medication
me.
that
You told
makes
me
you.
that they give them.
No, I said no. The
Matthew,
ovaries
yeah,
provide a medical function, which is a hormone profile of estrogen. So if you do
Uh,
not have ovaries, you get estrogen given to you
uh,
through medication. Then you
yes.
develop the hormone profiles of a woman. So therefore, you develop as a woman.
Oh,
Trans women
no,
do
no.
the
I'm sorry.
same
I thought you
thing
said they
for a
develop
cis woman.
ovaries.
No, they don't develop ovaries because they
Okay, no,
weren't
no, no.
born with them.
I would still consider that a eunuch then. Yeah, sorry. That was a mistake from
No, they're not a
my
eunuch
end, I
because
guess.
they have hormones.
No, I would still consider them a eunuch
A
because they don't have
eunuch doesn't have
ovaries.
hormones.
Well, that's because they were
yeah,
infused
they're
with
not
hormones. They
completely
weren't
androgynous,
naturally.
Matthew.
Pardon?
Matthew, they have breasts, they have functional vaginas, they have all of the things that you need to, like, if you think about a woman in the world, you wouldn't be able to tell them from a different person on the street. You wouldn't be able to point to a
Mm-hmm.
person that says, that person doesn't have ovaries. Like, you wouldn't be able to do any of that, but you would be like,
Mm-hmm.
internally in your mind's eye, you're like, you know what? That's just not a woman.
Oh no, like if I didn't know or if I knew.
You
If
wouldn't
you
know.
didn't know.
You wouldn't know because it's none of your
Oh,
goddamn
if I know, if I
business. Like
didn't
that's
know,
for them and their
I'd
doctor.
probably identify them
So
as well.
therefore,
Even someone who is
so
trans,
there
right?
So
Mm-hmm,
there
good.
you go. So
Okay,
therefore, that's an exception, right? So therefore, a trans woman that you don't know is a woman, then, right?
No, no, no. I would be mistaken.
It doesn't matter though, and you
so
you would
then
be
yeah,
walking
so then
around
Matthew,
treating that person
so
as a
then
woman.
Matthew, yeah, because that's the point we get to here. Where do we go with this information then? Like, if this cis woman who does not have ovaries
Mm-hmm.
uses the women's bathroom, are they not allowed to use that bathroom? And how would you know they're not allowed to use the bathroom? Where do you draw those lines
I really don't
in
care. I
society?
really don't care what bathroom a woman uses. To be honest.
What about a trans woman?
But you said that the person isn't a woman.
Well, like for me, it's like if a woman or a eunuch, I really don't care what bathroom a eunuch uses, as long if this person is presenting as a male, right, and they're a eunuch or whatever, I would encourage them to use the male's bathroom because some people may feel uncomfortable, but I can't like make
You
them
do
use any
realize that
bathroom they can. I can't make anyone use
a
any bathroom.
eunuch is a
A eunuch
person
is
that doesn't. Yeah, Ben, tell us what a eunuch, because I
it's
think there's a misunderstanding of
it's a
the
specific,
word
yeah.
eunuch.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that term is
somebody that does not have
specifically
testes
referred to
or
people who
ovaries.
have artificially removed those organs. Like in the past, they used
Yeah.
to surgerize people and remove their body parts, and that's what
And
That
that
is
not
also a
means.
replace
eunuch.
them.
So I think what we're talking about are intersex people, and there's a wide variety of intersex people, and additionally, eunuch is a very disrespectful term for these people. But there is a distinct difference. And one person who has had like organs removed and not had additional replacement of hormones, so they have a deficiency, versus people who have a genetic or anatomical difference that they just have. And Matthew, I mean this in like the nicest way possible because I'm trying to help you and I'm trying to help the rest of society. But
Mhm.
your scientific literacy is incredibly poor, and your medical literacy is incredibly poor. And I need to say this because you are talking as if
No,
you
I'm not
have the
insulted.
ability to. No, Matthew, you're talking and you're relying on your own experience and knowledge as if
Correct.
your opinions should be used to make decisions for other people, and that's really problematic and really scary. And so
Well,
I
thank God they're
think
not. I'm
you
not.
need to,
I don't use any. My
dial
decisions
back.
are not for other people.
No,
Just my
you
children.
need to dial back. You
Just
need
your
to dial
children.
back.
Those are
And
people.
yeah, those are people, and you need to dial back and use some humility and say, I don't know enough about this topic. I should shut my mouth about it. And
Well, I'd rather
you
I'd rather
really
ask questions
should.
about it.
You really should.
Yeah.
You really should. Like, if you don't understand that people can be born and develop with or without ovaries, like it's a very basic science. Like,
Yeah.
I have to really hold myself back to not get into some of the nuances of medicine, because this is the field that I work in, and people are harmed by the things that you're saying. And they're harmed to an extent that you can't even process because you don't understand the basics even well enough. And so I say this out of compassion and kindness. Please don't do this to your family or yourself. Like, just dial back, like defer to people who know more than you, because this is incredibly dangerous.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing.
And Matthew,
I'm
and I'm
deferring
not
to you
trying to
guys.
shut you down. Yeah, I'm not trying. Well, if you
That's
defer
fine.
to us, then you would say that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that some women can
Which
have
I've already
penises,
agreed
some
to.
men can't have penises. So you
Which I
agree
don't
that
agree
some
with.
women can have penises? Well, there you go.
No,
You're
I
not
agree that there's a
deferring to the
difference in sex
experts
and gender,
here.
but I don't agree that
Okay,
women
well
can have
that's good.
penises.
We are taking a step there. So a woman,
Mhm.
and the case, since there's a difference between sex and gender, and I'll leave it with this because we've been on this call for a while. We have a ton of other callers to get to, but the thing is, if you believe there's a difference between sex and gender, therefore the gender of woman, right, exists, right? Would you agree that there's a
Right.
gender of woman and there is a sex of female, right? Would you agree with that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great. So the idea of what my first example was, that a black woman, a blonde woman, a trans woman, and a cis woman are all in the category of woman, which makes them the gender of woman in society. Is that right?
I don't agree with that. I don't
Well, then
infer that.
you don't agree with the difference between gender and sex.
Okay.
So that's
I
the
disagree with
logical
that notion, but
inconsistency.
I won't argue with it.
Well, right, because I'm talking about gender and you were still talking about sex when I bring up that example. And that's why this conversation is incredibly difficult to have, because you say, yes, there's a difference between gender and sex, but then when I give you an actual applicable example of how that actually happens, you disagree with it. So
So
therefore,
to qualify,
you have
as I said,
we call that a cognitive dissonance. Do you understand what that is?
perhaps,
Where you have
yeah,
one
and
idea
like I
in your
said,
mind.
I might be cognitive.
Yeah, you have.
Like all the things you're saying about my science education
Okay.
understanding is probably poor. I'm willing to accept all of that, right? However,
So if you're willing to accept a cognitive dissonance,
right? Hold on.
Okay.
You're asking me questions about things how I understand things, right? I'm not writing articles. I'm not saying any of these things. You're asking me questions about how I understand them, so I'm responding, right? I don't just live in a vacuum until someone
But that's
tells
the
me
thing.
something.
Your understanding,
I'm almost
is contradictory. But go ahead,
I'm almost finished with my
and then
point.
we'll have to move on.
So,
Okay.
yes, that's fine. So sex and gender, I do believe they're different, but I believe they are interlinked, right? Almost to the point where they're basically practically inseparable, right? So when you say woman, 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 I'm thinking the adult human female. These are two different
So you're not
definitions. These are two gender and sex are different. They're different expressions. But when you say woman, I'm thinking adult human female, somebody with large gametes, somebody with ovaries, and anyone outside of that would be, for me, in my understanding, which could be wrong, is considered a unit,
Yeah, and we've
or somebody that doesn't, or
understanding
intersex or something like that. Pardon?
We've established that
Okay.
your understanding on many things is wrong. We've established that,
Yes.
and you say that you're willing to learn,
I
but
would
you've
love
not
to do some
demonstrated
more research then.
an actual willingness to learn.
Yes, please do more
So
research. Please do it, and
Yes.
do it in a sense that is medically based, and don't just go to like people like Matt Walsh and like What is a Woman documentaries
Yeah.
and things like that, because the reality is that we are using the term woman as a gender, and you are using the term woman as a sex, which is a misunderstanding of what you said between the difference of woman, gender and sex. A woman is a gender, and a female is a sex, and those are two different things, and that you keep conflating the two, which makes it impossible to be able to actually have the conversation, because you are conflating things and having cognitive dissonance. And when you have an
I don't think it's
opposing view,
impossible. I think possibly
well,
my
then,
cognitive dissonance is not letting me get through to that understanding, and I'm sure I can do more
yeah,
research. It's not that it's impossible. Like, don't give up on me because I'm just
okay.
like not getting it yet.
I'm
Like I said,
not
I'm
going
trying
to
to
give up
flow,
on
right?
you, but we are going to
So
move on to the next call.
yeah, that's
Matthew,
fine.
I really
That's
appreciate
fine.
you. I really appreciate you trying to think this through and just look at the cognitive dissonance. You don't want to have you don't want to walk around the world with cognitive dissonances in your world, right? You want to be
I think we all
clear-minded
have
and
them here and there,
understanding
but
of
I
the
think it's
logic.
important. I agree. Yeah, I agree that it's
Yeah.
important
So
Just
to
try to
watch
take
that.
clear
a
up your
biology
cognitive
class.
dissonance. Yeah. So
Pardon?
take a biology
Take a biology
class.
class.
There's a lot of adult learning classes. You can go to a community college, grab one for $40, and you can get a whole credit.
I've been
Like,
to
do it.
biology class, but like you're
Go
saying,
to a
the
college one.
information is
Take
newer,
another
so
one.
maybe it's outdated.
There's more than one biology class. I have a whole degree
Yeah.
of biology classes and a degree of medical classes. You can take more than one biology class, and I think it'd be good for
I
you if you
understand
want to
that.
have
And
these
what I'm trying
conversations.
to say, I know that's
Sure.
a bit tongue in cheek, but what I'm trying to say is that the information that I'm probably privy to is probably outdated. I'm willing to accept that.
Go
I'm
to
willing to look
with
go to
into
a
that.
it. It's
college
just,
that has updated data. Yeah, go to a college,
that's
take
fine. Yeah.
updated,
Yeah.
like get it from that. It's not. I'm not saying it tongue in cheek. I take college classes sometimes too, and I already graduated. Right? It's something about, as adults, we should always be learning and trying to clear up and learn more about the world around us, rather
I
than just
agree.
believing the traditional values that you got told a long time ago. I want to know that there's different colored fire hydrants. I don't want to burn a house down because I don't know that the green fire hydrant is actually a fire hydrant. That's how I live my
Right, but that's
world.
gonna take.
Does
That
that
might
make
take
sense?
time. Josie. That might take time
Yeah,
that you learn that fire
yeah,
hydrant green, and
a
that might take
semester
work and
of
deferring to
class.
different experts
Yeah,
But
and calling in on
it
calls
does
and stuff.
and the
take work.
important thing is, it takes
Yeah.
work, and the important thing is that you don't jump to what conclusion you want to have. You have to understand that maybe I need to wait before I voice an opinion because I don't know enough yet. And I think
Well,
you're
you
in
Yeah.
asked
that
the
stage, and
question, so
you
I
need
just
to
answered it
step
how I
back and say,
understand it.
I don't know enough yet. I need to hold back.
Yeah.
You
But
asked the
anyways,
question.
Matthew, I
I'm just
really
answering how I
appreciate to where
understand
we
it.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. And
All right.
now we know that there may be a lack of understanding that you need to continue to grow and understand more. That's what we're saying. We're just
Right.
telling you this,
Yeah.
be an adult and grow. That's all it is.
Exactly.
Okay, Matthew. All
All
right.
righty.
Thank you so much for all the calls. I appreciate you, and I didn't yell at you, so we're good. All right. Bye.
Yeah. All right. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye. Okay. All right. Well, at least there was an admission of the cognitive dissonance, and Maddie needs to understand why having a cognitive dissonance is bad, and we shouldn't walk around in the world just thinking that cognitive dissonances are just things that exist in humans, and so therefore you could just exist in the choice of what it is. I really do hope they go to a college, though. That would be really good for them.
Oh, same. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a bunch of callers on the line still. So we're just going to go through them as we see them. So yeah, let's go ahead and take Sally from Canada. How are you today, and what is the topic you would like to discuss?
Hello. This is my first time calling, so pardon me if I'm a bit
Yeah,
awkward.
it's
Um,
fine.
so, about 3 weeks ago, I finally started estrogen therapy
Mhm.
because, well, I was feeling like I was a binary woman. But like alongside that, I have been addicted to cannabis for like years, right? And
Mhm.
about I'd say a week after starting HRT, I stopped. Like I've been cold turkey since. I'm probably gonna use it again eventually, but like for now, I just want to like get control of my life again, I guess. Um,
I get
but
that. I
since
just did that
then,
recently myself.
oh,
Yeah,
uh,
it's great.
since then though, like I haven't I'm not sure. Like, maybe it's I feel more afraid of being a binary woman now, or maybe I was just non-binary the whole time, and I honestly I have no idea right now.
Sure.
Yeah, and that's totally
Um,
totally fine. And just, I mean, because I know Josie's gonna have a lot to say about this one, but like labels are just ways for you to like help describe yourself to other people, but you don't have to adhere to any one label. You can have multiple labels. You can change your labels over time. Like you can use no labels. Like just be the best you that you can, and you don't have to even commit to binary or non-binary. You can go in between them. Like people are dynamic, and your identity can be dynamic as well. So you don't have to make a forever decision. You can make your decision based on how you're feeling that day and go from there. But I'll hand it over to Josie.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sally, this is something that I think a lot of trans people experience, especially in the throes of transition, is sometimes we kind of like over exaggerate one side. Like I used to wear eyeshadow all the time. I used to go really heavy on the dress feminine profile, and now I just put a little
Yeah, like
foundation,
that's been
blush, and
me. I've like
yeah,
back when I was
right?
smoking pot all the time, like I was dressing up every day. I was putting on wigs every day, push-up
Yeah,
bras. But now it's just
yeah.
I'm so tame now compared to then.
Yeah, and that's because you're starting to find what your comfort zone is, and it's completely understandable, and it happens all the time where we kind of like go hyper femme or hyper masculine, and then we kind of fall somewhere that's more appropriate to ourselves. It's like trying everything out to see what sticks, right? And I think it can be pretty gratifying to be able to be like, you know what, I don't like putting eyeshadow on every day. I don't like putting on the extra levels of like the sculpting type of makeups and things like that. I actually just like putting just a basic foundation, blush, and eyeliner, maybe some mascara and my eyebrow pen, and then I am done. I'm like, all right, I can finish getting ready in 10 minutes, right? And I love that, and I'm very happy that I was able to experience both, because then I was able to be like, okay, this is where my comfort zone is. This is the natural look that I like, and this is the type of outfits that I like. Because I now go out more in a t-shirt and shorts now more than I used to. I used to only wear dresses, and I think it's just a natural thing, and you're just coming into your own. And going back to like, it says here, being afraid to be more binary woman with your estrogen, you are going to develop secondary characteristics that are seen more as a cis woman. And those are things that you're going to have to like come to terms with to see if you like. And maybe I can toss back to
And
Ben. Yeah, go ahead, Sally.
um so I'm sorry, could you just repeat the last part there?
Yeah, about the fact that estrogen is going to make you develop secondary characteristics that are more in
Yeah.
line with a cis woman. Mm-hmm.
So the strange thing about that, I guess, like like the seeing other people uh perceive me as a woman gives me comfort and like I guess
Yeah.
pleasure. That might not be a good word to use,
Mm-hmm.
but despite that, I don't really I don't internally see myself that way.
Sure. That,
Yeah,
there
and
is a
that's
thing called
totally
trans,
valid.
feminine, non-binary. I know so many
Yeah,
trans femme non-binary people that take the estrogen, do the whole hormone thing, but they still consider themselves non-binary. And that is completely valid. And that's all your identity and your choice. Like, if people start she-herring you and you don't want to be she-heard, then say, no, you're non-binary, they, them. And you have to just deal with that like every other non-binary person that has to deal with that type of behavior. But there's no shame in being trans femme non-binary.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, not even that, just being a femboy, like that's a
Sure.
comfortable thing to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, and you can look at this in a couple different ways. I mean, kind of, unfortunately, going back a little bit to the last conversation, but like, you can separate out what you want for your body and what you want for your internal identity, and so your expression and how you take your hormones can be different than how you perceive your identity to be. And so, if you think of the hormones as a way to get to a body type or get to an expression, um, you can be whoever you want to be, like, with that. And so just think of the like medical therapies and surgical intervention. Think about that as just like a tool, as part of your toolbox of how do I get to where I want to be as myself. And so it sounds like maybe in your case, it might be a good option for you to go forward with. But maybe for somebody else, it's not. And there are
Go
options, new
forward
options
with
coming down the pipeline as well. Yeah, just with medical transition. Like if you're somebody that says,
right.
no matter where I fit on this gender identity spectrum, I would still be happy with my body looking like this. And that's like, okay, cool. And then you just have to understand, like Josie was saying, what are the permanent outcomes of doing this thing? And then you have to weigh that out of, are these side effects, are these permanent features worth me doing this? Would I still be happy knowing that that's going to be the case? And that's your own decision to make for yourself.
I suppose
But if you
that's
say,
what I'm figuring out.
Yeah.
yeah, and that's probably the scariest thing, is wondering, am I going to be happy with these features, even if, like a lot of cases,
Well,
especially thinking about surgery, like the question before surgery of, what if I don't like the result? I did this thing permanently to myself. Would I still be happy? Would I still go forward with this, even knowing that this could be the outcome? And that's the thing that I understand as a question, because nobody else can answer that question for you. Nobody else can do that. And I know for me,
I mean, in all honesty,
there's certain
it all
surgeries that
seems
I'm,
beneficial.
yeah.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry.
Go ahead.
There are like certain procedures that I'm not going to have,
Oh.
because I am not willing to accept certain side effects and certain complications. But somebody else might not feel the same way. So but go ahead. What's your thought on that?
Honestly, everything about estrogen seems like most of it is beneficial to me. The only things I'm skeptical about, I would say, are. Am I still on?
Yes, we're listening.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought my headset died. It just beeped for some reason.
It's okay.
So yeah, everything about estrogen seems beneficial, aside from two things. Or I guess one of them is estrogen and blockers.
Sure.
The reduced sex drive is a bit concerning, and breast development is a bit of a concern too. Like, I wouldn't mind breasts, but I guess I don't want big boobs, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are things out there, that it's being studied still currently, that progesterone helps with sex drive. And I think a lot of
SARMs are coming. SARMs are coming for use for transition, which I've kind of alluded to in previous episodes. But SARMs or SERMs, however you want to pronounce it, but selective estrogen receptor blockers, or receptor modulators is the word. I always forget the words, but it's essentially they use it currently for osteoporosis, especially in people who have risk of breast cancer or other reproductive organ cancers. And essentially, it blocks estrogen activity in breast tissue and uterine, cervical tissue, but it enhances it in bone tissue and others. So it can allow for a more non-binary or androgynous physical transition in people who underwent a testosterone dominant puberty, because it can give you some of the fat redistribution and some of the other skin effects of estrogen, etc., but it doesn't impact breast growth and that kind of thing. So it's currently used, it's approved medication for cis people, but that's a question I'd have to kind of look more into. And again, this isn't a medication currently used for trans.
It sounds like it would be favorable if it was available.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's available for cis people and for osteoporosis. It's just not available. It hasn't really been fully studied for
Yeah,
trans people, and so
I
that's why I'm
understand.
hesitant to answer about that. But it's currently being studied for that purpose, and I think that it's going to be a big game changer in the future. So I would keep on the lookout for that, because I think fairly soon we should have enough data to have that be more common. But there,
Do you think maybe
I
it would
think
be a
to
good
just
idea
looking,
to like hold off on the HRT then, perhaps?
it depends. It depends on what you think, but just kind of raising awareness that the things that we have right now are not always going to be the only options, and so that's something to weigh out too. Is, do I want to, like, is my dysphoria so severe right now, or even just my my desire for this type of body so big right now that I want to make this decision today, or do I want to wait and see what else comes? And you might wait, I don't know how long, for some of those things to happen. And so that's a gamble you have to take on for yourself, of what does this mean for me? What timing am I willing to go forward with? And just know that there may be more options in the future. So you have a lot to think
Absolutely.
about, and it can be anxiety inducing for sure, because there's
I
so
mean,
many
that's like fear of
decisions.
missing out, pretty much.
Maybe. And there's also different treatment options of monotherapy as well, where you take the blockers off, and so therefore it's more of a gentle transition, where it's much slower, and you may be able to be able to do that type of work. These are all things that
A
you can
friend
talk
has
about with your
told me,
doctor and
like,
provider.
it is possible to microdose.
Yeah, but you talk with your provider on that. But yeah, there's so many different methods now that are medically approved, and clinicians have studied it, that you can do to make yourself feel more comfortable with the changes that are happening to your body. You have control. It's bodily autonomy, right? So just
Okay.
make sure that you're always talking to your doctor about what things you are doing. So therefore you can say, I don't like this effect, I'm going to either drop it lower, and just make sure that you're getting your blood tests and you have a physician involved, so that way you're not doing any type of damage to your system. But other than that, I think that you have a lot to think about, and I wish you luck with everything.
Yeah, part of why I called in. But yeah, I guess
Yeah.
it just comes down to me, huh?
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah.
That's the case of that bodily autonomy. It's yours.
I wish I could give you an answer, but unfortunately, that's I can't give you an easy answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're just
Yeah,
gonna
it's
have
like
to
it's like,
talk to
is it
more
possible I'm
non-binary
this thing
communities.
by definition? But no.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many trans femboys that I know, like trans femme, non-binary, trans mass non-binary. There's so many different communities, and just reach out and just see what people have done, and be like, hey, I like how you look, I like your vibe. What do you do? Like, it's just like anything else, right? Like, you talk to somebody, like, and figure out what their deal is, and you can learn a lot from somebody like that. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I wish you the best of
Accumulating
luck.
other experiences would definitely help.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a
is
big
it
help.
fine if I ask another question?
Yeah, really quick,
Just
sure.
for time? Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
so the last caller, Matthew, he reminded me of, like, his arguments, the way he was arguing, he honestly sounded like identical to my parents, who I live
Yeah,
with currently. And it's
Mm.
just like, do I have a chance of explaining being non-binary to them? Because my sibling, when they found out like 4 years ago, like, they still don't use the they them, the singular they them, because when they were kids, it just wasn't like that, and therefore they shouldn't be
yeah.
doing it now. But that logic's not sound. How do I convince them that's wrong?
Well, there's really a hard thing on convincing.
I get
I
you guys
actually
to
have
do
a
it.
parent. Yeah, one of my parents does not accept me and never will, and I'm a binary trans woman. And it really, first I always say, if you're in a safe environment where you're not going to be like kicked out or homeless or anything like
Well,
that, like
they're not that
you can
cool.
Okay, good. So, and honestly, it's just tell your truth, right? And, their care for you will be able to trump it. And honestly, the way I look at it like this is like they don't have to understand it to respect you, right? Like,
It
not
feels like from
everybody.
their point of view, though, they do.
That's how they feel, right, sure. But in reality, it's like you can only go so far, and eventually people come around to it, right? Like it took my mom probably close to 2 years of being able to really understand and know that this is who I am, and she doesn't understand it. She won't understand it. She never will. But you know what? She respects me, and she will still call me her daughter. She still loves me. She still, treats me as the woman I am. So sometimes it takes time, and it will get uncomfortable, and it's just something that you're just going to have to kind of like figure out. And really, it's about patience, and
I mean,
you are
part
the
of
most
part of
likely person. Go ahead.
it feels like part of the whole like being sober again thing is like me just being afraid of their transphobia,
Yeah,
even
and
though I know
honestly,
they're not gonna like threaten my life or anything. It's just
right,
it just
right.
sucks when the people you live with are just so disrespectful towards you.
It is unfortunate. And, honestly, you are going to be the person that best makes the case for your existence. No one else is going to be able to do that better than you can. And, and maybe getting your sibling involved and trying to get them to start doing it as well, maybe a Kickstarter to be able to get them on board as well. But yeah, it's
Kickstarter?
not easy. Yeah, like basically like your sibling, if your sibling is doing it for like saying, hey, they, them, in a sense, and they continue to use it, and then that sibling is going to be able to advocate for you in a way that
Oh,
isn't really possible in any other way.
I guess so. I should mention sibling doesn't live at home. Siblings moved out.
Oh, but are they supportive?
But no, what you're saying still stands.
Yeah. So having them be around when they are around, and then they referring to you as they when they're talking to your parents at all times, and just keeping on and doing that will normalize it for your parents, and eventually they may come around to it. I can't make any promises, but it will be a good start.
I guess so. I mean, like it's not all bad. Like my mom, at least, she's been going
Yeah,
to stuff with me, like support groups with
that's
me
good.
and things like that. I think she
That's a
might even
positive
like
sign.
be open to call the line if I asked her to. But
Hey,
yeah, Dad still has a lot of
happy
way
to
to
have her.
go.
Yeah, but no, that's fine. We would be absolutely happy, and maybe she should call on when Lux Anders is here, because Lux will be able to speak on the non-binary femboy point of view in a way that I
Okay.
think is more closer to its identity than mine, because mine is binary. So
Sorry, when did you say he
that
would
makes
be on?
sense. Lux will be on next week, I believe.
Be on next week. Okay.
And I know
I just wanted to write that down.
Yep. Lux will be on next week.
Okay.
Great, awesome.
That
Thank you,
it.
Sally.
Oh, that's all the time we have.
Well, yeah, we have a few more callers to take. Unless you have
I
a really
understand.
quick burning question, but
Let
you
me
can
check
call
right
in
quick.
next week
Probably
too.
not. No.
Yeah, let's move it to
Yeah,
next week because we're
yeah,
almost at 90
Yeah,
minutes.
it'll
We
have to
have
be
four
next
more
week.
callers, so.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
So let's
fine.
go into
Thank
next
you
week.
so much.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.
I don't know if you saw
Okay, great.
Discord. I messaged, so we're at 90 minutes, or about.
Yeah, sure.
Excuse me. Sorry, everyone. I'm still really fucking sick. And we've got 4 callers on the line. So I don't know if
Yeah.
you wanted to take all of them. Do we have time
We
limits
can
today?
we can try. I don't have any time limits. Dr. Ben, do you have any time limits?
Yeah, I don't have any specific time limits, but probably I don't know if we can get, depending on how long
We
these
can
ones
try to
take.
zip through them.
Yeah, we might be able to zip through some of these.
We might be able to do it.
Okay,
So
just
let's
keep me
give it a
updated.
try,
Yeah.
and then we'll keep you updated. Thank you, voice of God. I always knew God was a woman.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I didn't know. I
All
didn't know
right.
God was ill, though. I didn't know God could be ill.
COVID can even
Yeah,
catch God. It's a bitch.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. All right, we'll move on to the next call to Nick from, I believe that's Wisconsin? No, Washington.
Washington.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm in
Washington State.
Washington State. I'm out on the coast.
Oh, nice.
Hey.
I hope it's a lot cooler than it is on the East Coast.
Yeah, it's going to be a beautiful sunny day, but the nice thing about being on the water is it does kind of mitigate the temperature. It's going to be like in the hundreds in the Seattle area, so I'm glad I'm out on the coast.
Woof. Yeah,
Yikes.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, so what's up?
Cool. Well, thank you for taking my call. Huge fan. I've been wanting to call TACUS for months, but Thursday is a really difficult schedule for me. So super glad that you two are broadcasting on the holiday. So I'm going to try to keep this. I'll try to keep this quick because I know you want to get to other callers. I am the parent of an awesome autistic, queer, non-binary kid. And
Awesome.
while we have a number of trans people in our lives, our primary identity as trans allies, revolves around the kid. I do have a main topic, which is about kind of helping our kid get through top surgery. But if it's okay, can I just take 2 minutes to talk about something that happened on their college campus last year?
Sure, please.
Thank you. So my kid went up until this year to Mount Holyoke, and Mount Holyoke is a historically women's college and has a hugely diverse population. I mean, just the diversity on the campus is wonderful. My kid had a wonderful community, et cetera. But this year, on Matt Dillahunty's birthday, aka Trans Day of Visibility, somebody, probably a student at campus, stickered up campus with a whole bunch of, like transphobic and turf bullshit. And they took trans flags, they put them in the toilet in the bathrooms. And the thing that was really frustrating to me, like I realized things like this happen. I also, while this is a shitty thing to do, it's free speech. I protect people's rights to free speech. But what I really would expect from the college is that they would stand up and take a stand against that. And all that happened, and apparently there have been racist incidents and other incidents of hatred, like anti-Palestine stuff that's happened on campus. And all the college ever does is like circulate some emails around the students saying, oh, this is awful, we're going to investigate and get to the bottom of this. Nothing ever comes of it. And I, as a parent, am just furious about this. And like I tweeted to the college president and said, when is the college going to make a statement about this? And she tweeted back and said, oh, I already sent out a statement. And I said, well, no, you didn't, because none of us parents got it. None of the alumni got it. So really all I wanted to do here is just say this out loud in a public forum, because I just feel like it's getting swept under the rug, and it's very, very frustrating.
Yeah, I would ask the question if it were swastikas being splattered and spray painted and put all over the campus, if what their response would be, right? Because it's like, it's like, do they see as hate, or are they choosing which hate is more egregious in their point of view? Because at the end of the day, it is as hateful, in my opinion, as that, right? If they were slapping, stickers of swastikas and, saying that type of rhetoric, I think the college would probably be a little bit more aggressive in their response, right? So it's really interesting to see what their policies are on that. But Ben, do you have anything to say to that?
No, I co-sign all of that.
Yeah,
got nothing
for
else
sure.
to add.
I actually believe there have been anti-Semitic stuff that's gone on. They've been, people who've like chalked the N-word around campus, and my kid reports that the response is basically always the same.
Well, that's unfortunate. There just needs to be better policy about hatred and bullying, because this stuff escalates, right? And this is just unfortunate that this is taking such a subdued tone to this, because this stuff escalates to violence. And this is just always the canary in the coal mine to something more later, and it's just very unfortunate.
Yeah. Yes. So
Yeah.
thank you for supporting me in that. Like, really, I just needed to say it out loud. So,
well, thank you for sharing, and I'm sorry that happened. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
so what's your question for Ben?
Okay. My real topic. So, so my kid is my kid wants top surgery, and my wife and I want to support them in this, and we'll all approach it as a team. And I want us to have a really good idea about where do we start, and then what does the process look like end to end, and especially because I'm the only wage earner in the family, I want to know like what it's going to look like for me financially. Like, can insurance get involved? We have really good insurance through my employer. So basically, I have all the questions, and Dr. Ben, Obi-Wan Kenobi, you are my only hope.
Yeah. How old is your kid?
22, a grown-ass adult.
Okay. It was like, because that changes the process a little bit. Because as an adult, you're working with an informed consent model. So depending on what insurance you have, some insurances actually do cover the majority of, if not all of, top surgery, which is amazing. Okay. If you don't have insurance, you're looking at about 10 grand total, which really is not bad at all for a surgery. And that's including everything. At least that's what mine was, and it was through like a private surgeon, like with their with a surgery center and stuff, and like all of that was included in that cost. But if you have insurance, a lot of that can just be completely covered. Kind of the first step is really doing research about surgeons in your area. Finding who you would want to go through, and especially if you're trying to stay within network, trying to find somebody within your network. But very, very, very important, and I'm sure Josie and everyone here will agree with me, you need to see pictures of their work. You need to know what they can do, what the results are, because people can be very variable. And the people in my area at the time, like we had multiple very good surgeons in my area. And I was able to get a really good sense of what the surgeon was able to do. But that is super important, is finding a qualified surgeon that has results that you are looking for. Because even if everyone does top surgery, styles can be different. And you need to make sure that you know what you're getting into. It's like getting a tattoo artist. If you want a realistic tattoo and you go to somebody that only does cartoon, then you maybe pick the wrong person. So look into like who your options are, what their costs are, if they're a network, all of that. Make those decisions, and then most surgeons will have you do a consult visit so they can tell you what they'd be willing to do for you, what your options are. Because there are a few different procedures for top surgery that they can do, and they would tell you what you're a candidate for. And so utilize that visit really to ask all the questions you have, see the pictures and all of that before you make a decision of, yes, I'm going to go through with this surgery or not. Most surgeons will have you'll have to pay a certain amount up front, like before you can reserve a spot. But if you get a consult, that doesn't mean that you're committing to a surgery. So just know that you can say no after that, and don't compromise as far as that goes.
Can I ask, just interject a question? One of the things that my wife and I asked for when they first, expressed interest in this was, we said, wow, that's a big step. And I realized there's not a lot of, post-surgery regret. And it's been a while, and they've consistently wanted this. We had said, hey, it would be great if you would go to a therapist who's experienced in gender issues, and really kind of and tell me if this you think it's a good idea, if it's a must do, if it's not.
Well, it's
but,
if for insurance, for most insurance, it's still required that you get a letter.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of what I had assumed.
Yeah, it's required.
Is there a good way for us to go about finding a therapist or whatever professional we need who's expert in gender issues?
It depends. Yeah, it depends on your insurance and it depends on your state, because some places require a PhD level psychologist. Some people will let you utilize if your therapist is a social worker or if they're like a master's degree psychologist, etc. Some plans are different about what they require.
Yeah.
So, and you can go about this a couple of different ways. Sometimes you can mitigate if your therapist isn't a PhD. Sometimes you can get around it by having a second letter from like your primary care or somebody who's doing your hormone therapy. But there are very specific requirements if you're trying to get insurance to cover it. And so probably like look into what your requirements are through your insurance and then kind of go from there, because they will probably end up dictating who you get to go to for those letters.
Yeah.
Would my first call be to this, like, would the surgeon provide us with all that information likely, or should I go directly to my insurance company?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, like it depends. Like your insurance is always more difficult, but like if you have a surgeon that's experienced with your insurance provider, they already have all that stuff listed out. So it could go either way on that. And I also, and this is something you should, tell your child that, it's a good idea to have a therapist, especially when you're undergoing a major surgery, because there's a lot to talk about, especially during recovery and things like that, that it's just a good person to be able to talk to, because surgeries are tough. They're hard on your body, hard on you psychologically. So yeah, it's not a bad idea to have somebody that is regular for your just mental health in general. You too, everybody. So yeah, and just I would look at it in that sense rather than being like, hey, let's find somebody that can help you for all your issues, not just your gendered ones, is always a good idea in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, and they're kind of in between therapists now, but that's on the list for them to get in with a good therapist who, especially somebody who's can deal knowledgeably with gender issues.
Yeah, and you're in Washington State. You're actually there's an embarrassment of riches of great people there. So there's a lot of community resources. You can call your local LGBTQ center, and they probably have a list of approved therapists that you should probably go to that have already been vetted by different members in the community. So that's another place that you may want to go as well to figure out who you want to go to.
Yeah, we're not real close to Seattle. We used to live in Seattle. We now live out on the beach, which is rural and red and all the things you don't like.
I'm sure there's probably still a local center. I bet you there's still a local center.
Even like telehealth. Even telehealth with somebody from the city. Yeah,
no, absolutely. We're close enough to be able to get the resources we need, and they're living in Olympia, which is relatively cosmopolitan.
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. Especially if they're like in that area. Well, great. Well, thank you, Nick. I hope that was helpful.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to ask about is kind of like the surgery and the aftermath. Like how long does the healing take? Are they going to have to take a certain amount of time off school, or should we wait until they're done with school, or work? How much time off?
2 weeks of nothing. Yeah, it's about 2 weeks of nothing. You're going to feel pretty restricted for those periods, especially because you'll have their drains that are in for about 2 weeks, like a week or two, depending on your surgeon. Some surgeons don't use drains, but a lot of them still do. So that's just something to take into account. I would say for sure you need 2 weeks of nothing, and then like very light work for the remainder of the month. So like probably take off sports for that time. There's even a time frame of how long you need to wear compression for, and it's about a month or so that you have to do that, a month or two. But you can still do things like school should be fine after those 2 weeks. Just not lifting like using the arms a whole lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you,
Cool.
Nick,
Thank you.
and let us know. Let
Yeah.
us know how it goes. Awesome. All right.
Yeah,
Well, have a
I
great
will
day.
once. Yes, thank you. You too.
Yeah. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. Okay. So we're just going through these calls. So we have Brian from Kansas. Hello, Brian.
Hi, Josie and Dr. Ben. It's nice to talk to you both.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for waiting on hold, and I'm happy to talk to you. So what would you like to talk to us about today?
Well, for a little background, I've always kind of considered myself, cis het, but I don't really like labels very much anyway.
Mhm.
And over the last, 6 months, year, or whatever, I've been really exploring, what my thoughts really are on how gender really works and what it means for me in my head and everything. And again, don't like labels, but if I were to label myself right at this moment, I would say gender fluid probably fits me better than anything else.
Yeah.
And the reason that I wanted to talk to the two of you is because, I think, pronouns are very important, obviously, and giving pronouns are very important and respecting pronouns. But again, I don't like labels, so I have a hard time saying what pronouns I would prefer because I genuinely don't care. But the problem with that is, like, even just seeing my name up there with any on it is like, you see that so much with its transphobes and TERFs that are throwing that any out there to be insulting. So I'm wanting to talk to the two of you, if you have any ideas on how you can express that I honestly don't care what pronouns you use without it being me being a bad person, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your sensitivity to it, but any all is completely acceptable.
Yeah.
As far as pronouns, because you say it with confidence, right? You're not saying, "Oh, I don't believe in pronouns. Oh, well, pronouns, I don't care about them." Blah, 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 blah. You're just saying my pronouns are any all. Use whatever you'd like.
Yeah.
And anybody who gets offended by that, they can get more clarity. But I don't think anybody, if you say it confidently and you know what you mean by that, then everybody's going to get the vibe, right? I don't know, Ben, if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's totally acceptable. And if somebody says that to me, I would do my best to respect them. And you can even, if you've got really good friends and you've got certain days that you prefer certain pronouns over others, you can have a talk with your friends and say, like, hey, I'd like to just update you each time kind of what my pronouns are that day, and they should be able to accommodate. Just like say, hey, I'd like it if you used he, him for me today, and your friend should be okay with that. Like, okay, I'll call you this today. Or even if you decide you want to be referred to by your name only, that's also an option for people who just don't want any pronouns at all. Say, I just prefer to use my name instead of pronouns. So there's many different ways to handle that, but I don't think any of them are wrong. They're just different approaches.
Yeah,
right.
and as far as friends,
Brian,
like, I have an extremely good group of friends and coworkers, so that's not at all a concern with them. If I were to say any and I don't care or whatever, they know what I mean. Like, they would just use what they've always used and no big deal. Yeah, my bigger concern is just like when you're in a group of people that don't know me, I don't want to come off as being, combative or demeaning or something like that. So I like the way that the two of you put it, of just stating it confidently and kind of knowing what I mean when I say it, so it doesn't, so I don't send that vibe.
Yeah, it's not going to sound like you said it for the first time. Right. Like you're going to be like, in any way that you choose to say it, you are defining what you are and who you prefer to be seen as. And that will always come off authentically. Right. You know the type that are the transphobe types, like, oh, I don't believe in pronouns. Oh, fine, none, or things like that, in a way that has a bad vibe to it. Like, even if you're saying, oh, I don't prefer to have any pronouns today, just if you can refer to me as Brian, that's fine. That is valid, because I have a friend, and only uses the name as the preferred way of being. It's hard to talk about somebody who doesn't have pronouns. Sometimes I'm still getting used to it, to talking to them on the third person without like just blurting their name out in the world. But it's kind of like, name is the only thing the name wants to do. Right. And to me, I think that it's valid because of the way that the name wants to be said in that way. Wow, that is difficult. I'm still getting better at making a third person conversation about this human. But yeah, it is fair and valid, and just say it with confidence, because that's who you are, and people will read it. It's authenticity. It's just who you are.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I'll let you guys move on to, I know you got a lot more callers. So thank you both very much. That gives me a lot to think about, and it helps a lot. And Arden, I hope you feel better soon too.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, Brian. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye. You too.
Bye. Short and sweet. I love that. Perfect. And we will go to our friend Pip from the UK. How are you, Pip?
Hello
How are you
again.
doing? What would you like to discuss today? How are you?
I'm feeling very stressed at the moment, and it's related to the topic of conversation, so not going to be particularly cheerful this time around, because tonight is the UK elections, and to be perfectly frank, I do not trust the state any longer to really care or give a shit in any capacity about trans issues, because the last time I did that was in 2019 with Jeremy Corbyn, and that election was all about Brexit. It was just Brexit, nothing else. And even though it was a coherent response, that's a whole other story. Long story short, the Labour got wiped out, Corbyn stepped down, and now we've got the spineless centrist Keir Starmer, who is openly saying how transphobic they are, in that, they don't want biological men in women's spaces. And so today I have voted for the Green Party because I live in a Labour safe seat. That means that Labour is so popular here in my particular constituency that it's extremely unlikely for Labour not to win in my area. It's about as guaranteed as you're going to get. And as such, I could vote with confidence that I'm voting with my heart and voting for a party that actually cares about trans rights and doesn't just give a token, march in the Pride Parade only to then turn around and oppose our rights. But at the same time, I'm still recognizing that we have a state, we have a government, and given how the first past the post voting system, which is very similar to the US, will basically make it almost functionally impossible for a party to win that isn't either Labour or the Conservatives, that we're stuck with this binary choice, and I'm just extremely tired at this point of having to play a game of political football in either sense of will they or will they not support me? Am I being strong-armed into voting for one particular party just because the other might be slightly worse? So that leads me to my full question. Do we put too much faith in in the state to protect trans rights? And do we need to do more direct activism to actually ensure that we are being, well looked after and that we get the rights that we deserve?
Yeah. I will say yes and. Right. Unfortunately, the way governments across the world, especially UK and the United States, is that they have a complete monopoly on power. Right. They have the police, they have the government, they have the ability to dole out resources, and that is the way that it works. Right. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way that our governmental systems have evolved over the last few centuries to be able to be run. So we do put too much faith in the state power because that's kind of how we get civility in the world that we have now, right? And I look at that like, of course, there's still state violence, right? The state is still committing violence by saying the NHS has the ability to deny healthcare for people, right? Like those are like in-state like problems that are happening. So what I say is the yes and that there needs to be civic action to show that this issue is just not going to go away, and they're going to have to eventually do the work. But honestly, and this is the tough pill to swallow that I tell people in the United States just as well as I tell people over abroad as well, is to get more involved in your state party politics, especially the ones that are in power. Now, the UK has a specific advantage that it already is a multi-party system. So therefore, working for the Green Party and making it stronger as an organization to start gaining power is a good thing. But like you said, you live locally in a place where Labour has most of the control. So in that case, going in and going to Labour Party functions, making friends with the people who are in charge of Labour to start helping push the narrative in their minds that they need to be able to make those change internally, and doing the inside out type of effect is also effective in a lot of ways. It's not fast moving. It's very annoying because you have to shake hands with people you'd rather slap. But in the reality is, it is a way that you're able to start getting into the consciousness of the people who are actually making and pulling the levers of power. Now, it's even more effective if you get 15 to 20 people to join you in this process, be it by local committee meetings that are involved in the space, figuring out how the functions, getting endorsements of people within the party to be able to put the people on the slate. I know that party politics is very powerful in the UK because they basically say, okay, this person goes here, this person goes there, but this person goes here. So it makes it more imperative to do the party work inside to be able to get people who are going to align with the issues. It's not a perfect answer, but I know that it is a way to start instilling party power within the system itself. And it's a lot of holding your nose. It's a lot of, I always say, pushing the sludge through the pipes. And you have to get good at doing that, because every bit of sludge that you push through that pipe that moves in a direction that is in a better place, you're actually affecting people because those people have power. And it is a difficult process, but that's how organizing works. And they have all the levers, like you said, they have all the levers of power, and so therefore you have to go and take over the machine sometimes to start pulling the levers yourself. It's not a pretty answer.
Yeah, I fully get that. And this is where I have had actually some frustrations with other anarchists who are often saying, especially in regards to the US, that the two parties are the same. Well, one of the two parties has trans people in it who are at least trying to influence the whole thing and get something done. And I am a strong believer in direct action. And sometimes that can mean putting pressure on the state. But at the same time, it's all sometimes it just feels so incredibly frustrating and hopeless that even when there is a division of Labour called LGBTQ Labour, who in my constituency or nearby constituency put up a table during Pride Month, and then for the leaders to start trying to, appeal to the TERF crowd in order to get more votes. And what do you stand for? At what point do we say enough is enough? If you're not going to, represent us, if you're forcing us to vote for you, then we're not going to sit quietly and, you know, let you trample over us. I don't know if you heard recently, but there has been a group of trans youths who have not so much taken over, but occupied rather the NHS headquarters, I think in London, with a big banner saying trans kids deserve better. And to be perfectly honest, that's the kind of thing I want to see more of. Sometimes you have to make a disruption to, you know, say, we're not going away. And if you are not going to look after us, then you're going to expect trouble. I'm not a violent person. I abhor violence in any capacity, but I also recognize the systemic violence that the state can and does use against minority. And so sometimes there might be situations where you have to use violence in order to, you know, really get seen, because no minority right has ever come just from asking nicely.
That's right. That's absolutely right. And, you know, that's why when you have mechanisms within the party, right, when you start seeing, so for example, like I have very deep connections within the Democratic Party. I know a lot of people, and a lot of people call me when things go down. And the fact of the matter is, I put myself in a position where I'm able to speak to my community and speak to party leadership at the same time. So when things start going awry, because they need to, because state action, I mean, action is important. I want to see more aggressive action coming from the activists as well. They can say, oh my gosh, this is happening. What do we do? And then they can actually speak to me, and I'd be like, this is what they're asking. This is what it is. It's the translation, right? I call it passion management, right? It's the ability to manage what is going on and translate it to the people in power. And if we don't have people within the system to be able to translate it, it usually turns into more violence or more of the same, or the digging of the heels even deeper. So it's got to be a both and, right? We got to have the external forces pushing into the state power, and we got to have the internal forces pushing outward, because you have to have that unity of both for the power structures to understand what is going on around them. And it is a very delicate dance, and it's very hard, and it can blow up in a lot of different ways. But if we don't have the power to continue to vote and show we have legislative power in winning elections or pushing votes in a certain way of being out there, then when you have those really strong queer LGBTQ voices saying, no, we're voting you out, the transphobes really feel outnumbered at the end of the day. So yes, it is an all out assault, and we need to be able to do everything all at once for us to get the word out. And it is not an easy journey, and this is going to be a journey that's going to take a decade. And I think that's the most important thing to understand, and people need to understand. Anarchists, the communists, the socialists, everybody that's in the system needs to understand this is a 10 to 15, maybe even 20-year process. But if we succeed 20 years from now, trans kids will be able to get that healthcare without any problems, right? It's justifiable to say, yes, it's going to be a long fight. We need to dig our heels in and build these trenches now for the long haul, because 20 years from now, it will be better. And we have to continue to know that, and know that it's not going to change in 2 years. It may take 20, but we need to keep fighting, or it will never change.
Absolutely. One thing I often like to reflect on is consider how much society has changed in the past 100 years. Think about how many different civil rights there have been. There's been, you know, so much has changed, both socially and politically, and we have gone through multiple revolutions. And whatever you think of quote unquote communist nations there are today, these revolutions have happened, but they all started with people who said, we are not going to take oppression lying down. And so I want to have hope for the future, and I want to try and convey to other anarchists that sometimes working with people in the States to try and apply the pressure in addition to is a form of mutual aid. And that doesn't have to be a false dichotomy with, direct action. We can help, trans people in oppressed areas by giving them shelter. And, even if it requires things like black market hormones in one form or another, if it needs to be done, it needs to be done. And so giving up in the voting process entirely, I'm as tired of playing this game as I'm sure you are, as many other trans people are, whatever their, part of the political spectrum they are. But if we're going to play this long term, sometimes we need to, fight on multiple fronts, if that makes sense.
That's right. It does. Well, thank you, Pip. I hope that makes you feel better. I know it's not the answer that we all want to hear, but we're going to win this fight. The arc, and I'm going to use Martin Luther King quote here, which is, "The arc of justice is long, but it always bends toward justice." Right?
Absolutely.
And
so we do make that happen.
And we have to be the ones that bend it, right?
Exactly.
So that's how it goes. That's how it goes. So wonderful. Thank you. Ben, do you have anything to add before we let Pip go?
No, not really. I think y'all covered it. So
okay, great. Thank you, Pip. Have a great day, and good luck in the elections. I know it's a tough one.
Thank you. Bye for now.
Yeah. Bye. All right. So we are going to get to our last caller, Anders from Sweden.
Yeah.
Hello, Anders. How are you?
Well, I'm fine, but the cat is angry because he can't go out.
Poor kitty.
Yeah.
So how are you? What can we talk about today?
Gender dysphoria.
All right, that's a simple topic.
This is a big topic. So just for awareness, since we've been going for a while, this might need to be picked back up next time if we're feeling like it's going to take a bit.
Absolutely.
Because my cat's also angry in the other room, and so she is going to be down. So
go ahead, Anders.
Can you explain what it feels like, or is it like trying to explain to someone what the color blue is like?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Go ahead, Ben, if you'd like to talk about that. We both suffer. I'm assuming that you suffer from gender dysphoria. I do too sometimes.
I do, yes.
So yes.
yes. I've heard a lot of good ways of explaining it. One of the ways I really feel this is, like, imagine a situation where you're going to an event, like you're going to a nice event or something very public with a lot of friends and other people, and your shirt, like the only shirt you have is like, it's either super wrinkled, super dirty, or like doesn't fit, but it's the only thing you got, and so you're wearing this to this event, and like the feeling of everybody staring at you, even though they might not be noticing that your shirt doesn't fit at all, or that you've got wrinkles on your shirt, or you got stains on your shirt, they might not notice, but it is preoccupying your entire brain. You're like, I know that they're watching me. I know they can see my shirt doesn't fit. Are they going to wonder why I didn't go home and change my shirt? And all that. Like, that's consuming your thoughts. That's a lot like my dysphoria feels. It's like, if I'm in a place where I'm expected to be a woman, act like a woman, dress like a woman, like, are they going to know that I'm an imposter? I don't belong here. I'm not going to say the right things that a woman should say. And like, it's the same thing, like, in cases where I feel more feminine, because I look young. I don't have a nice beard that a lot of other trans people have. And so I'll be in a place even with a bunch of men, and I'll think, like, did they know that I'm not a real man? Do they know that I, like, I'm not a 12-year-old and that I'm actually older, and just can't grow facial hair? Like, are they going to find me out? Like, all those things of just feeling like you're not right for whatever reason. And That's kind of how dysphoria feels to me, and it can be very, very distressing because, like in this case where your shirt's wrinkling and stuff, it's like, do I just go home and change? Would they notice if I just should I just leave? And I would feel so much better if I just went home and put on a different shirt. But I'm expected to be at this event, and so what if I just stick it out? If I just stay and deal with it? And that's kind of the decision of, do I transition? Do I not? Like, I'm gonna have to explain to people why I'm wearing a different shirt, why I changed all this stuff. But I think that's one of the ways I would explain it. Josie,
Yeah, and I have another way to look at it as well, because the shirt analogy is really good of how you feel other people are looking at you. Now, there's another way that gender dysphoria, in my opinion, shows up for me. For example, when I was like not out as a trans woman I am, I think about it as having a rock in your shoe, right? And you don't know you have a rock in your shoe, but it affects everything in your life, right? You're walking and it hurts. You can't carry anything strong because you just have this gnawing pain in the bottom of your foot, but you don't even know it's there. And then all of a sudden somebody is like, hey, it sounds like you have a rock in your shoe. And then you take the rock out and you're like, oh my God, my life is so much different. I'm not thinking about the rock in my shoe anymore. I can walk. I don't have to think about it. And you can just go on your life without even thinking about your feet, because that rock is now out of your shoe. And that is how I felt when I came out as the woman I am. I finally got to take the rock out of my shoe, because I always had this buzzing in my brain that was just bothering me all the time. It's like I didn't feel good. I never looked good. I always was asking people, it's like, is this the way I'm supposed to do my hair? Is this the way my shirt looks? Tell me I look fine, right? And it was this really loud, obnoxious thing that was always holding me back, because I could never be authentic. And so for me, I like the idea of the rock in your shoe, because it really does illustrate how distracting and how it affects everything else in your life. So those are two ways that we kind of analogized it for you. What do you think, Anders?
Okay, that sounds interesting. It's partly a social thing, but also partly just the feeling that something's wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it shows up for everybody differently, right? Some people have really strong dysphoria around different parts of their body. Like for me, my dysphoria used to be my voice. Like when I first came out, I was like, oh, I can't stand the echo of my voice in my head. It was just so bellowy and loud and low. And like, it just drove me absolutely bonkers, especially when I knew I was Josie. And some people don't have dysphoria around that at all. And then there's some people who have dysphoria around their chest, or some people who have dysphoria about how they look in public. There are so many different levels, and everybody's comes up differently. So some people are very little affected, very little by it. Some people are affected to the point of trying to self-harm, right? There are so many different levels of dysphoria that can happen inside of an individual.
Okay. Do all trans people have it, or only some?
No, not everybody has it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And also you got to think about, it's also sometimes when people are able to just like live their truth, they never even had the experience of gender dysphoria. Let's say they were raised when they were young, right? And they were able to just live how they always wanted to live and just exist in society. It's like a cis person doesn't suffer gender dysphoria a lot of times, but some people do. They're like, oh my gosh, I don't like the way my beard grows in. And that's a form of dysphoria, right? And cis people can have that as well. Just as much as a trans person can have it, or not at all, if that makes sense. Some people are more comfortable, right? Let's say here's another analogy of this. Like you live in a world where there's only vanilla, and you don't hate vanilla, right? You like it, it's fine. You eat vanilla, everybody around you is eating vanilla, but then you discover there's chocolate. And you're like, oh my gosh, this chocolate is so much better. I'd just rather have this. Now, you didn't hate the vanilla in the first place, but now you experience that chocolate exists. Now you just want that. And, it doesn't mean you hate vanilla. Doesn't mean that you had dysphoria around vanilla. It was just the fact that now you like chocolate and you just want to do that now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. I may call back if I have other questions.
Yeah, please do. And I hope your kitty's not so angry.
He's radioactive at the moment. He's had a
Oh, that makes
proceed
sense.
radioactivity, so he's mad that he
Well,
can't get out. Okay.
well,
Thank you very
thank
much.
you, Anders. All right, have a wonderful day. All right, bye-bye.
Have a good day.
All right, and that was the last call. Thank you. It was good. This was a good show. I think it started. It
Yeah.
started with a lot, and
That's
then
good.
it kind of dovetailed into things that were great. So, yeah. Do you want to go ahead and get the super chat started? If you want to get your
Yeah.
super chat in, make sure you donate $5 in a super chat or more, and we will read them before the end of the show. So get them in while you still can.
Yes, we have 20 pounds from Jackie Greenland. Here's to hopefully celebrating the ejection of our transphobic crazies in our government today. Independence, if you will. Not that replacement is likely to be much better, but hopefully not as openly hostile. Yes, I would love for you all to
Yes.
celebrate an independence, if you will, as well.
Yes, absolutely. $5 from D27A. Caitlin, as a trans woman, I have the right to exist and express myself as anyone else. Trans rights are human rights. Thank you for what you do. Smiley face and heart. Thank you, Caitlin. Appreciate that.
$5 from Alyssa. Don't you know you gotta flow, the pancreatic juice flow, right? Yeah, this is a Weird Al song. Yeah, love it. The pancreas is fine. My favorite organ is the kidney. You get so many points for giving the kidney memes.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm wearing my kidney shirt. If you can see it. Oh man.
Oh
okay,
yeah,
it's
there
really-
is a kidney shirt.
Or it says "Are you kidding me?" Because it's a pun.
That is such a
funny
dad joke. Oh my god.
It is.
Such a dad joke on a shirt. Oh my god. 123 and 0.69 checks from Naresh. I now have a trans girlfriend in Venezuela. With the Atlantic between us, I'm patiently waiting for a TA kiss. Team Caballero. I think that's so sweet.
That's our combined name now, Josie.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Yeah.
Cabanero. I like it. Oh my gosh.
That's hilarious.
And welcome to having a trans girlfriend. We're actually super great.
I kind of have. I guess we're not like official and anything, but I'm on my way to having a trans girlfriend as well. That will.
Okay. I
we'll
thought
see.
you already had a trans girlfriend. Was that another girlfriend you used to have?
Oh no,
Or maybe
I
miss it.
haven't had a trans. No, I haven't ever had an official one, but maybe it's the one that's on the way
The
to
unofficial
maybe
trans.
someday. Yeah. Being official. Yeah. No,
You got to get the authentic trans girls. You can't get the unofficial kind.
Yes. Oh no, I meant unofficial.
I know. I'm joking.
Girlfriend part. Rare moment I get to watch Takis live. Yay! What do you think the future will look like for trans people under the Trump or Biden administrations after the election? Happy 4th of July. Miserable under both.
Oh, well, I mean, one is more miserable than
one
the other.
One is more miserable than the other by a long shot,
by exponential differences.
Exponentially.
Yeah.
I don't even want to think about that one. I don't.
Yeah. Trump stuff is just bad. I mean, we're talking about the criminalization of doctors providing gender affirming care for everyone. That if that doesn't give you a good picture of what Trump will bring to the world, then we have one responsibility this election, and that is to beat Donald Trump. And however that turns out, that's the way we gotta go.
Yeah.
$10 from my shipmate Alyssa Nguyen. A skeptic starts from I don't know, not from what I already know is right until proven otherwise. So you can't pretend that people move at warp speed when you don't see every step. E.g., students over summer. Yes, Ben, you missed the fact that Matthew actually said warp speed when talking about trans children, about transitioning, even though...
Oh, yeah, I've heard that argument. That is such a Matt Walsh argument, too. Yeah.
It really is. Yeah, it really is. But yes,
I saw
Matthew is
something.
not a skeptic. He's a traditionalist.
I saw something this week that just like made me very happy, and I'm sure you all seen it too. It's like out Harry Potter tattoos have a way higher regret rate than any trans surgery.
You believe that? I believe that so much. Like, absolutely, 100%. Oh my god, I didn't even think about that. Dang.
Maybe we should
Somebody should
outlaw
tweet
Harry
that.
Potter tattoos. Yeah,
I know, because
yeah.
the
No,
regret rate is
somebody
too
tweeted
high.
that. Yeah.
JK needs to get that tweeted at her every day. Somebody just regretting their Harry Potter tattoo. It's like the regret rate is too high.
$5
yes.
from Stomp 10. Isn't it interesting how gender critters don't want trans masculine people using female spaces? Yeah, no, and that's where it goes with the whole bathroom argument, is that trans masculine people just don't get to use the bathroom because we're too frail to handle the men's bathroom. We're too unsafe in the men's bathroom, but we're too intimidating for the women's bathroom. So we just don't get to bathroom. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, folks.
No, and
hey,
that
should be more reason. They should just provide us all with free phalloplasty then, because then we can just go on the side of the road and then it's not a problem. Who needs your bathroom?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Ben, you know what they say now, right? It's they can always tell. So it's like it's always, if you look, it's now about look and not if you look like a man, then use the man's bathroom. If you look like a woman, then use the woman's bathroom. It's like, come on, they're just moving the goalpost more and more. It's
absolutely.
It's so bad.
It's garbage.
It really is. $4.99 from Luis Richardson. Always happy to get your super chats. Is there not some core to our knowing our gender? Are we just arbitrarily saying we are other than what we are assigned at birth? I know. It's so true. Like,
yeah,
it's just obvious. You analyze it for 10 seconds with an open mind and you'll get it.
Yep.
All right.
$10 from David Haxor. It's just hi. Hi, David.
You get my hi. $9.99 from Alice Rosas. I've had a day and was a little worried when I saw Matthew's name when I opened the video. I have enjoyed hearing the knots he ties himself into, to not have to acknowledge how he is wrong. I know. It's like it came to the point where like Matthew was just like, I have cognitive dissonance. It's like, that's what I have. And it's like, yes, you're like so close. You're like so close. Like, you do realize that's a bad thing. And it's like, well, maybe it is. And it's just like, it's like acknowledging that I'm wrong, but I'm okay with it. And so therefore I get a pass on having my beliefs. Like, it's just like, it's so close. Get somebody to the edge, right? Bring a horse to water, but you can't get them to drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's how that whole call was. It's just like he was right there. He was right there, and then just refused to apply the same logic to this issue that he did for any of the other issues we brought up.
I mean, Matthew literally said that there is a difference between gender and sex, and then when given the option to apply that difference, refused to apply it. Like, it's just like
inconsistency.
It's so much. It's so inconsistent. Yeah.
$5 from Larry Fishman.
Oh, is it you?
Through an amazing feat of scheduling, I ended up with consultation for breast augmentation, FFS, and pre-SRS electrolysis next week. I'm actually really excited. I hope you're excited because you're planning these procedures, and if you're not excited, I mean, there's lots of emotions that can go into things, but I hope that you're excited for things that are upcoming.
Yes.
So congratulations.
That is exciting. Yeah. And the zapping, just love the zapping. Just be one with the zaps. The electrolysis zaps. Blah. I still get them every 2 weeks. I got a zapping appointment tomorrow on my face.
Zapping. I can
That's
just
what I call 'em.
donate your facial hair to Trans Man. We will gladly take
I
it
wish.
off your head.
I wish
wish,
it would
but-
work. Like I have the most stubborn facial hair that I'm finally getting to.
I want it. I have
appreciate
like
it.
6. I got like 6.
Oh,
Actually, it's more than 6 now.
yeah.
We're making progress. But
Oh,
I'm
good.
actually hitting my was it on the 12th? I think I'll be at 3 years
Nice.
on the 12th.
Congrats.
3 years on T.
Yeah,
making progress in the world.
Yeah,
So.
5 to 7 years to complete that puberty process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm turning 30 this week, so in 2 days actually. I'm turning
you're
30 on
such a
Saturday. So.
baby.
I know, it's so
Aw,
funny
happy
because you get all
birthday.
the super young people and they're like 30 is old, and I'm like, I know full well that adulthood is actually like your 40s is when you actually hit adulthood. And that's like young adulthood, like really starts in your 40s. But
2 years away from that mark for me. Yuck. $5 from Monkey at Typewriter. Matthew is frustrating. Bro rocks right up to the line of learning something and just plants there. Teaching him is an exercise in education. Education.
Love that.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's good.
$4.99 from Alice Rosas. My brother has been in the Marines for a few years, and I'm worried about how he might be politically when he comes back. Do you all have any advice? It's hard because the Marines are the Marines. It's hard. It's hard with them in general without that issue. And I say this from not the Marines, and I say this as a person who constantly shit talks the Marines. I don't know if there's a lot you can do. You can, try conversing if you feel like it, but like just know with anybody in your family, families don't like to listen to family most times, and you might just need to use boundaries as a way to like enforce, either you respect me and the people I love, or we don't talk. That might be what you need to do.
And also, getting out of the military is a very, very difficult thing to do for anybody coming out of any branch. And they come out kind of still being the same person. And it takes a long time to make that adjustment into civilian life. And so sometimes when people come out, I'll speak for myself, being cruel is seen as normal and funny and a way to make friends, when in real life it's not. Like, I went into community college right out of the military, and I was a complete jerk. I was a bitch to everybody, and I thought it was the way I was supposed to be, and I became incredibly lonely very quickly. And I hated it so much, and it took me a long time to figure out that I was dealing with a PTSD of trying to acclimate back into regular civilian life. So just remember to be patient as well. Your family member is dealing with an incredible amount of trauma, and it is incredibly difficult and hard when somebody is going through that transition. And I hope that your brother gets a therapist quickly rather than waiting a long time, because it took me 6 years to figure it out. And so just remember to have that grace, because the military is trauma. That's boot camp is trauma right out of the bus. So just remember that it's baked into the system, and it is going to affect everybody differently. And just remember that veterans coming out of the military are coming out damaged, and it's scars we can't see. So that's what I will say there.
Yes, that you put that so beautifully.
Thank you.
$9.99 from Jason. Thanks for that awesome fun fact about the Harry Potter tattoo regret rate. That made my afternoon. Yeah.
Yay! It's good. It's really good. $5 from the gym head. I'm not trying to be rude when I ask this, but how does a birth assigned male know that their brain is female type cells and vice versa? Wait.
I'm guessing this is.
right.
I'm guessing this is
This is a Matthew quote.
snarky. Yeah.
Yes, it's a Matthew thing, right? Like how do I know if exactly. That's the right thing, right? It's like you can't. You just have to just listen to people and believe them. Like brain science is very close to like phrenology. It's just as racist and just as fucked up than anything else that we do. It's like measuring a skull.
Yeah.
It's like it's the same thing.
Just believe people. Just listen to people. Just be respectful of people. Like even if like you don't understand someone's perspective, like it takes really zero effort on my part to respect somebody.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
That's it. $5 from Monkey a Typewriter. What if we made a separate bathroom for transphobes? Then they can feel safe. You'd think they'd be okay with a separate but equal facility, or no? Yeah, I mean, if they want to be separated from trans people so bad, like, they'd probably actually enjoy that.
They probably would. It's like the bigoted room.
It wouldn't be a good punishment because they would like it.
And then they would want to expand the room to be the other bathrooms. It's like, why can't all the rooms be bigoted rooms?
Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
$9.99 from the Sapphic Bibliophile. I'm in California with a trans partner. If Trump wins, do you think they'll be able to push the non-gender affirming care through federal levels, or are we safe here? Should we start to hoard his tea? That's a tough one. It's one of those things where, if the federal agencies start to see it as a felony to provide gender affirming care across the board, it's going to be very difficult. And luckily in California, there's like so many people there that they will probably be able to like have their own sanctuary of their own understanding at first. But over time, things will try to be changed overall. That's why we can't let him win, because Project 2025 will go into all agencies across the entire country. Like everything involving any type of bodily autonomy, including gender affirming care, is going to be on the ballot. And that's why we just have to do everything we can to win this race, because the latter is that question. The fact that we have to even think of that as a thing should be a wake-up call to everybody who is not voting in this election against Trump. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, it's really grim.
It is.
$10 from D27A Caitlin. I remember when I was 4 or 5 watching the Aladdin movie on VHS, pulling my tank top straps down like Jasmine. Nobody was talking about it in the media, etc. 92, 93, no media society yet. I always knew.
Absolutely. Yeah. So true. So true. $5 from Alyssa Wynn. As a former crewmate of mine, USS Enterprise. Oh, you were on the Enterprise? Oh, man. I forgot about that. I'm sorry. Has a trans kid. I told her she can blame the radiation and the fact that she and I were in close quarters. RC division for the win. Let's go. We were both reactor controls. We were both reactor operators. So everybody knows the inside knowledge here. Great. Well, that is our show. Oh, by the way, you know that I'm probably going to be doing like canvassing in Michigan, right? I'm actually going to fly or drive to Michigan as a road trip and actually do canvassing there and actually knocking on doors, holding the hands of my partner and saying, look, you better effing vote. If you don't, we're all like I'm already planning it. It's like I'm just like that's how serious I take this, y'all. Anyways, it's a thought that I wanted to put. But anyways, Ben, it was so good to have you. You're not on here long enough, but I understand you're doing the good work of the doctor.
Yeah, I'm trying to change my medical specialty, which is a fun time. But I'm I'm trying
Sounds
to
fun.
become a critical care nephrologist, so we'll see where this goes. But super
What is a
busy.
nephrologist?
Nephrologist, kidneys. That's why I'm so obsessed.
That's why you're so
it's my
obsessed. Okay.
it's my neurodivergent special interest, and I was like, I need to just pursue this. But yeah, I'm not here enough. I wish I could be around here more. But yeah, it's good. It's good to be here for some spicy calls.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I'm glad you were here for some of them. But yes, I think I'm gonna be on next week, or am I not? No, yes, I am gonna be on next week. And I think I'm on with Lux, so that's gonna be a good time.
Lux interjected earlier. It's not scheduled until at the end of next month, and so I think it's actually going to be you and I, assuming that I am feeling better, but I should be. Okay, but you know, this COVID has been coming in waves and weird waves, so we'll see where we are.
Oof. That's no fun. Well, it looks like I'm going to be on with God.
That's right.
And to prove the existence that she exists right here on the line. It's wild. That's been the trick the whole time. Everybody's been trying to prove God, but we've had her the whole time. It's really sneaky. Oh my gosh. Well, everybody, thank you so much, and remember to join our Patreon for exclusive content so you can be one of these cool people. Look at all these cool people, man. There's this list gets longer and longer every time. People. They really are the coolest people. It's the best way to be. Just be on this list. And look how long it's getting. Like every time we do this, it's getting longer, and it's making me be more awkward as I try to vamp.
Yeah.